Here, Bullseye sent this last week, so this is gonna be our new intro for today. Are you guys ready? Hello, welcome. Today, the reader who stalls for eternity, the tamer of beasts and dogs, the one who farms LOTM. Easy Geeky will be your host today. Yo, what's up, guys? I know we've been gone for a while. We're at Anime Expo. We've been kind of sidetracked on the read-through series just because, you know, the Dunqua episodes, it's been kind of chewing into our time, and we haven't had as much free time on top of everything. So I apologize that I haven't been able to read as much. But now we're good. We're back. For some reason, my audio is super low. You guys can't hear it. I'm going to raise it a little bit. But now we read. What's up, guys? What's up? What's up? What's up? D username. Ow, I almost fell off my thing. Cammy Mysterious. Or we're going to keep reading. We got like 2-3 hours, hopefully. And then after that, I should be back and stream more. Because I don't think I'm going to do anything with the misses before I leave. So I hope you guys are ready. Chapter 745, Volume 4, The Undying. Knowledge is Money. Okay, here. Chapter 745, Knowledge is Money. Finally, at the instant that he reached the deal, Klein heaved a sigh of relief. He felt the pressure of him significantly decrease. Although Miss Messenger had said that the 10,000 Loen gold coins could be paid in installments and she hadn't specified when it would begin, Klein didn't wish to drag out the payment for too long. Afraid that he would incur the wrath of Renette. After all, she was a spirit world creature at the demigod level. She really ended up mad. She had the means to make things difficult for her employer, even if she restricted the contract. Besides, the cost of acting as a tycoon is just too high. The salary of 20+ servants and the corresponding costs is only just a tiny portion. There's still the carriage, horses, wines, gifts for neighbors, banquets, and investments to conceal my status. Even if them more expensive than the last, if I don't save up enough cash, I'm afraid I'll go bankrupt and unable to continue. No lag? Lag? On my end, it says we're good. I'm sorry. Let's give it another minute and see how it goes. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining in. Sorry, it's kind of last minute. I didn't really even, like, announce it on, like, socials or Discord. Size 6,500 pounds. With the cash I already have, should be able to last until I confirm my target, right? No, the experiences from the past 2 days have proven to me that I should never use my own understanding to imagine the tycoon's life. I probably still have need after 5,000 to 6,000 pounds to barely maintain it. Klein wished to raise his hands to rub his temples, but he ultimately held back. He soothed his mind and made the world look around again before saying with a hoarse laugh the second item of the biological poison bottle. He used a relatively succinct, I cannot read that word, description to describe the conjure brownish translucent bottle. He emphasized the few poisonous traits in his hand, how long it took, how to prevent the effects ahead of time, and any negative effects it gave while carrying it. Audrey felt a chill down her spine as she felt a little embarrassed. She felt the former because of the terrifying poison that made one rip off their skin and flesh, while the latter was a result of strange aphrodisiac effects it had on the white area. What? This is truly a crazy cool mystical item, huh? It's the type that needs to be prepared ahead of time to show its full effects. It's quite useful against an ordinary spectator because observation and reading minds can help the low sequence beyonders of this pathway detect the dangers ahead of time and make the necessary actions. However, there needs to be for me to do so. If I had to detect a danger ahead of time, I can directly cry out of my guards. Besides, I don't like such effects. It easily harms myself. Audrey, you're already mature and rational beyonder. You can't just buy everything you see. Audrey seriously considered it for a few seconds before giving up and asking for a price. Oh, so she's like, I don't want it anymore. So let me raise the volume for you guys a little bit more, and then I think we'll be good. I think this is better. Seeing Miss Justice not ask for the price, Klein couldn't help but let the world add 5,200 pounds. Audrey bit down on her inner lips as she politely shook her head. I wish to obtain a mystical item that's more offensive in nature. Ooh, shit, we can get an offensive item for her. Spectator was a pathway that lacked any direct attacks in the early stages, one that was only effective at affecting or controlling their targets. 5,200 pounds. Olga Force and Emlyn repeated the price softly in unison before they shrieked all thoughts about it. 5,200 pounds. Katlia suddenly seemed to recall something as she paused obviously. She then quickly added, it's not necessarily for me. Madame Hermit seems to be afraid of something. Audrey acutely read her emotions. For a split second, Katlia felt the biological poison bottle had a lot of synergy with poison experts. Frankly, furthermore, their powers didn't overlap too significantly, and they even complemented one another. She was wondering if she would purchase it. First mate, since she had saved up quite a bit of money, but considering how Frankly might come up with terrifying experiments, and after obtaining the biological poison bottle, she trembled and gave up on the idea. She did wish to see the deck of the future produce the children of the crew, the kind and mood. After the gathering's over, I'll write to Miss Sharon and tell her that Admiral Blood's necklace has been sold. All that's left is a biological poison bottle. Klein hid his depoisement and after some thought made the world. speak, I have a book of secrets. It's a book on mysticism left behind by the southern continent's shaman King Klarman. It's suited for mid-sequence beyonders who have pretty good foundations. The price is 1,000 pounds. Knowledge is money. Having understood the teachings of Mr. Fool, Mr. Hangman, and the other members of the Psychology Alchemist, Audrey was tempted. She now had an extremely solid foundation in mysticism, and she had a desire to improve further. The Psychology Alchemist will likely teach me some mystical knowledge of a higher level in the future, but it will definitely not be an all-encompassing and will be limited to the domain of the mind. Audrey easily convinced herself as she nodded. This is exactly what I want. Forrest was equally interested, but the thought of how much money she had made her close her mouth. Oh yeah, she has less than 1,000, Moo. As for the other members, they didn't lack such knowledge. As expected of Miss Justice, she doesn't bargain at all. My bottom line was actually 800 pounds. No, I don't have one at all. It's not like knowledge can only be sold once. Klein happily made the world chuckle. Deal. However, I have to remind you not to pray the primordial moon. It will make you become a lump of squirming flesh that only knows to widely mate with different creatures to produce all kinds of children. Of course, you cannot pray to other secret existences. It will be equally dangerous. Audrey was terrified by what she heard as she couldn't help but change her seating posture. She then calmed down, turning to look at the end of the long bronze table. She said firmly, I'll only pray to Mr. Fool when holding a secret ritual. She had spoken with the utmost sincerity and without any hypocrisy. I cannot read. Oh my goodness. And without any hypocrisy. I think I read that right. Miss Justice really worships and trusts the Fool. Klein felt touched and a little ashamed. This is because the Sea God Scepter domain didn't overlap with the primordial moon. She was unable to provide any effective response under certain rituals. All he could do was attempt to use some of the powers of the mysterious space above the Great Fog and feedback. Following that, the Fool, he expressed his attitude on the matter very good. Meanwhile, having achieved his goal, he made the world say, I have an interrogator beyond a characteristic here for just 1,200 pounds. How many items does he have? Force was dumbfounded, considering how Shio was still lacking in money and lacking the corresponding formula. All she could do was retract her gaze and pretend as though she hadn't heard him. As for the interrogator beyond her characteristics, which was in the hands of Mr. Fool's subordinate, she didn't believe that he would keep it that long for her. Seeing no one respond, the world coughed and said, I'm done. Just as he said that, Olger, who had been waiting all this time, looked at Ketley and said, I wish to know where the omnisk sea monsters that don't belong to the Church of the Storms are. Omnisk sea monsters that don't belong to the Church of Storms. The Hangman really isn't a member of the Church of Storms. Ketley frowned a little before easing them. I hope you ask. We'll talk about the price when I actually have clues. All right, Olger silently sighed. A few seconds prevailed before Emlyn said to Forrest, I'll pay you 100 pounds for the clues today. Thank you, Forrest said without a delightful expression. Mr. World's transactions were all in the thousands or more. It made her feel a little numb to such a pittance. Emlyn then looked towards Derek. The crystallized roots of the Tree of the Elder, supplementary ingredients you need to have been acquired. Hand me the list of resources and monsters around the City of Silver, and I'll choose a few items of equal value. Oh, they cost me a total of 2,000 pounds. Adding my payments of 200 pounds, it will be a total of 2,200 pounds. Emlyn only wished to obtain things that he could quickly sell, otherwise he wouldn't have that much money. All right, thank you, Mr. Moon. Derek was delighted, for he suddenly felt that Mr. Moon wasn't irritating after all. He quickly conjured the corresponding list and handed it over to Emlyn. Emlyn casually flipped through the piece of paper and suddenly felt that it wasn't right. Just because just a piece of information had extremely high values, it presented detailed information and corresponding resources around the City of Silver. I remember that they didn't pay to see the list. Emlyn couldn't help but glance at the Hangman, Olger, and Hermit Kalia. At the instant, he seemed to understand something. When he looked at the sun again, Emlyn had a newfound sense of superiority as well as a sense of guilt as he couldn't get rid of. He cleared his throat and said, this is also this. Derek seriously memorized what was said, and he indicated that there was no need for him to return to the City of Silver, as those could be gathered around Afternoon Town. Following that, Audrey inquired about the clues to the fruit of the legendary chime tree, but he received a disappointing answer. When the transactions came to an end, it didn't need the Fool to announce, as they automatically enter a free exchange. Olger looked towards Little Sun and said, are you still in the Afternoon Town? Yes, but we will be returning to the City of Silver. The new expedition team arrived today. Derek not only answered Mr. Hangman's question seriously, but he even offered a tidbit. I've already told the chief that while clearing out Afternoon Town monsters, I obtained the potion formula of Notoriety. The Hangman nodded slightly and said, what was his attitude? He only said, very good. Derek carefully recalled what had happened. Olger chuckled when he heard that. You can be at ease. Your chief is very happy to see you grow. In contrast, you'll be more wary of Elder Counselor Shepard. He didn't continue on the topic as he informed all the members of the piece of news. Recently, many pirates had been heading to Banshee Harbor. They discovered they had already been completely destroyed. Even if it's rebuilt, it would take several years. Oh, next chapter. That was super quick, too. Chapter 746 is called Same Night. After hearing the Hangman's description, Klein couldn't help but recall Red Angel Medici and the evil spirit found in the underground ruin. However, he didn't share the discoveries of his exploration this time. Firstly, there wasn't a need, and secondly, involved Miss Sharon. As for the other members, they had already learned that Banshee Harbor had been destroyed, and since the hangman hadn't revealed any new information, there was no need for them to reply to the matter. Realizing that no one was saying anything, Oliver glanced at the world before looking back. He said calmly, "That's all for me." The hermit immediately turned to look at Forrest. "Ma'am, what do you know about Mr. Dorr? I can pay for the corresponding piece of information." Forrest, who didn't wish to expose her problem, suddenly hesitated when she heard the latter half of the sentence. She was momentarily tempted. "Payment? I wonder how much Ma'am Hermit can pay for me. I don't really know how much about Mr. Dorr either. Furthermore, some of the knowledge stems from Mr. Fool's words." Forrest looked at the end of the long bronze table once again and asked, "Honorable Mr. Fool, can I tell her?" As he met her every full moon, Klein knew that Miss Magician's financial situation wasn't in the best of state, so he smiled with a nod. "Yes." Forrest silently heaved a sigh of relief, turned to Cat Lee, and said, £500. You can request for a private exchange. Forrest struggling in poverty. Dude, she needs to make money. She needs a bestseller book in Tengen. Or Backlund. She desperately needs a bestseller book to make her money back. Katlia didn't bargain. After some thought, she said, "There's no need, just say it directly." She wished to see if other members would be able to figure out more about Mr. Dorr and Miss Magician's descriptions. Forrest nodded and deliberated over her words. "I once obtained a mystical item that helped me traverse the spirit world. But after using it, I would hear strange ravings every full moon or blood moon. It would inflict an excruciating pain upon me that puts me on the verge of losing control. And according to Mr. Fool, those ravings came from Mr. Dorr." She paused and added, "He might be asking for help." So Forrest had been silently suffering such pain. She usually doesn't show it, acting as though she greatly enjoys life. As Audrey subconsciously pitied her friend, she began wondering how she wouldn't have discovered anything abnormal about Forrest with her spectator powers. Mystical items that can traverse the spirit world, ravings during the full moon, suspected to be asking for help. Kalia repeated Miss Magician's key points as she nodded with satisfaction. Yo, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining in. I know it's kind of last minute, and I also didn't even tell you guys on Discord or on socials. I apologize. Mystical item that can traverse the spirit world, ravings during the full moon, suspected to be asking for help. Kalia repeated Miss Magician's key point as she nodded with satisfaction. "Thank you for your description." She then swept her gaze at the other members, regretfully realizing that no one else had any additional reactions. The three exchange continued as soon as it came to an end. Watching the other members leave and helping them complete a few transactions, Klein returned to the real world as he sat in a reclining chair. Feeling relaxed, he rested for a while. Following that, he walked to his desk and he picked up a pen and paper to write to Sharon. He told her that her scales of the luck had been sold, leaving only the biological poison bottle for sale, as well as the lunatic beyond her characteristic. The lunatic beyond... I forgot what that is. The lunatic beyond her characteristic? After folding... I forgot how we got that. After folding the letter, he wrote the information such as 126 Guard Street, Helston, and Ma'am Merriam. Then he opened the iron cigar case and made Admiral Bloodsinner silently appear beside him. This rave acted like a valet as he humbly picked up the letter on the table before vanishing from the room. A few streets away, a letter appeared out of nowhere in a mailbox as it fell to the side. Eastchester County, the Hall family manor. Audrey looked at the mirror with her unfocused green eyes as the contents of the Book of Secrets filled her mind. This knowledge formed an illusory book that appeared upon being recalled. She could then flip the corresponding page simply by willing it. This was the result of Klein directly using a portion of the powers from the mysterious space above the gray fog to create a product that was a fusion of information, bestowments, and the seared dreamscape's ability to recall it. It could last a week or two. And this was sufficient for Audrey to finish reading the Book of Secrets. If she had anything she couldn't recall in the future, she could always request for a bestowment. Mr. Fool's condition seemed to be improving. Audrey thought in delight as a twinkle gradually returned to her eyes. She stood up, walked to the door, and said to the bored golden retriever who was sprawled on the ground outside, "Susie, you don't look ladylike enough this way." Susie looked around weirdly and twitched her nose before saying, "This is the most standard acting during hound training, but you're a qualified hound." Audrey lampooned as she said with a smile, "I thought you would reply, Audrey, I'm only a dog." Susie replied in a serious manner, an excessive use repeated words, making it easy for others to grasp your personal habits and mental gymnastics. "Audrey, that's what that book on psychology wrote." Audrey was momentarily lost for words. At that moment, she saw her father, Earl Hall, with his valet and attendant walking up the castle staircase. Even though it was sunny outside, this place remained dark and gloomy. There was even candles stands that had been lit. They were embedded in the walls as they illuminated the stairs. "This castle is just too old. I think it needs a major renovation." Earl Hall gradually grumbled to his daughter. Audrey nodded in a demure manner and said, "Yes, my dear Earl. This is precisely why I dislike this place. It makes me feel like I'm slowly rotting away. But I'm actually spending £1,300 a year to repair this place? Damn, that is expensive." Stumbling her mistress will always be... It's funny. It is funny. "This is precisely why I dislike this place. It makes me feel like I'm slowly rotting away. But I'm actually spending £13,000 a year to repair this place," Earl Hall said with a regretful chuckle. Audrey glanced at Susie and smiled at her father. "Father, is there something for me?" Earl Hall pointed at the papers in her attendant's hand. "A telegram from Backlund. Someone is selling 10% of Backlund Bike Company. Are you interested?" no shot she buys it. I think this industry has a very bright future and is currently far from reaching its lowest estimated prospects. Bike, Audrey found the word rather unfamiliar as her eyes started around, her expression slightly confused. Errol smiled at his daughter. It's a kind of machinery with 2 wheels that allows a person to ride on it. You can understand it is a carriage for the ordinary person. For the ordinary person. Holy shit. What's up? What's up? Hello, fellow followers. Hello, dude. Hello, attendant of the mysteries. How are you doing today? Oh, I understood that name. That's a pretty cool. Ooh, I'm telling you, dude. Sequence 0 is gonna be called Lord of the Mysteries. Wait, don't confirm though. But we know sequence 1 is the attendant of mysteries. Oh man, I'm so hyped for that moment. In Loen and Backland, the majority of the population doesn't mostly comprise of the nobles or businessmen, but the ordinary people who engage in labor work. Next would be the type of people with some technical skills and standings. This is the target audience of the bike. They have absolute numbers as well as required ability to purchase it. Even if 10% of them are willing to buy a bike, it will lead to quite a wonderful development for this company. Yes, they hold a corresponding patent. Audrey trusted her father's foresight as she could understand the prospects and described by him. She nodded gently and said how much would be the 10% shares cost. According to the preliminary estimates that Backland, the bike company is currently valued at £50,000. This is because the products advertising the sales campaign still need time to develop. Furthermore, therefore you can't naively believe that 10% shares are only worth £5,000. I suggest that you bid £8,000 in the first round of the bidding with a bottom line price of £15,000. I'll send people to help you in this matter. Earl Hall answered succinctly. About £10,000. I've mostly used the cash for this month. Clearly a little embarrassed, Audrey said, Father, I won't be able to produce that money in such a short notice. About selling my shares of State's collections or await their profits will require some time. Earl Hall laughed out loud like, what do you mean you don't have money? There's no need to go through so much hassle. You can mortgage your shares in Backland Munitions Corporation's or Pritz Commercial Marine Company to the bank for a short period of time to obtain the cash. Once the matter is complete, you can mortgage the shares in Backland Bike Company for a long period of time using the mortgage loan to pay off the first loan. This way, you'll only need to pay about a week or 2 weeks of relatively high interest to complete the trade, and the bike companies divided a year would be enough to cover the interest of a long-term loan. You'll be able to patiently wait for its value to be recognized. That's a high probability event. Although Audrey had never received a complete education in commercial finances, she wasn't too unfamiliar with such matters with a major banker as her father. Some thought had allowed her to understand the entire process as she asked for as a form of confirmation. That's to say, I only need to pay about £200 to £300 and about 10% of the bike company shares or lower. Earl Hall said with a smile. Audrey understood her father is the largest shareholder of the Var Bank as well as the 4th largest shareholder of Backland Bank. He said the ability to help his daughter to obtain the most reasonable interest for a short-term loan. Thank you, my dear Earl. Audrey smiled as she courteoused. Under the moonlight with the dark blue seawater near the coloring of the black, Oliver Wilson stood at the bow ship as he watched the silent outline of Pazu Island. This was the headquarters of the Church of Storms, a land where a true God's grace was showered. As a middle-ranking member of the church, Oliver recalled himself coming here only 3 times. The first was him finding the Blue Avenger and after advancing to Seafarer. The second was his report last year, and this time as very long as a mixed blood with dark blue hair. He had been selected to enter the headquarters to a member of the children's choir, but without any talent in singing. He was soon dismissed. He returned to the chapel of the island where he was born to be a servant of the priest. There was an extremely violent superior to his subordinates. Every time he recalled a piece of history, his expression would turn extremely livid, fortifying his thirst to become a high-ranking member of the church. Amidst the wind, the Blue Avenger suddenly cursed forward into the harbor. In Backland, which had also ushered in the night, Emland White, who had dressed in a starched form suit at the top, had infiltrated the resistance of another sanguine baron, Roose Baffrey. He believed that Roose would be taking action soon to reel in his bait. As for Sanguine, a night with the crimson moon was very suitable for hunting. Oh, the guy from Hunt. Yes. After an unknown period of time, Emland's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw a figure leap from a window facing the house rear before landing silently on the ground. Is it him? What's up, guys? Thanks for joining. Chapter 747 is called First Blood. Under the crimson but gloomy moonlight. I think the audio is good. Under the crimson but gloomy moonlight, Emlyn took out a metal bottle, twisted its lid, and downed it. Then he seemed to transform into a shadow as he drifted. What? Then he seemed to transform into shadow as he drifted over the surface of the wall, quickly and silently following Roose Bathory. Sanguines were always known for their speed. The 2 barons. Oh, he's a baron. Yeah. The 2 barons ran through the sides of the dark alleys and streets, one after another, spending more than half an hour to arrive at the messy and dirty Eastborough, where they stopped in front of an old apartment. Seeing Russ Bathory choose to climb the pipe and using the most stealthy approach to head for the 3rd story, Emlyn slowed down his pace and didn't rush to follow behind him, as he would easily be discovered. After 2 seconds of serious consideration, he picked up a translucent perfume bottle, twisted it open, and pressed down on it, scattering the liquid inside it onto his body. The potion had only one use, eliminating his smell to make it identical to his surroundings. After putting down the bottle in his hand, Emmeline raised the brass bottle and downed the liquid inside. Prepare the battle music. I'm ready. I'm ready. When you guys say battle, just let me know. Oh, I mean, one story. It sounds like, I mean, the chapter is called First Blood. When it's fight time, I got you guys. After putting down the bottle in his hand, Emmeline raised the brass bottle and downed the liquid inside. A potions professor sure is troublesome. He mumbled, looking down his hands, became transparent. The brass bottle seemed to be floating in front of his sleeves. After Emmeline stuffed the tiny bottle away, all that was left was a formal suit, a top hat, and a pair of leather shoes without any buttons or laces. They formed a human shape as they moved about. Another completely transparent bottle resembled a perfume bottle flew over and floated in midair as it pressed itself, spurting the potions inside onto the clothes. Following that, the suit, top hat, and shoes turned faint and completely disappeared. After completing his invisibility, Emmeline glanced at the apartment where Roose Bathory had entered. He silently climbed a pipe and he chased after him with extreme speed. While the window was still ajar, he floated inside like a transparent cloud without causing so much of a stir. He hid in the corner as he watched the thin-faced but charming Roose Bathory search for the target. The latter slowly frowned. Since the place was empty, there wasn't even a mosquito, much less a person, despite the former becoming active in the past week. And this sanguine baron had already confirmed that the moon puppet was here. Suddenly, a creaking sound broke the frozen silence. The apartment's main door opened as the window and a black dress leisurely walked in. When she saw Roose Bathory, she asked with an eerie voice, "Who are you looking for?" Emmeline looked in the direction of the sound, and he saw a dark-skinned, long brown face with soft outlines and a drooping mouth. It was none other than his target, Windsor. However, in Emmeline's eyes, the primordial moon's devout believer had certain differences from her portrait. He discovered that her eyes, eyebrows, and mouth were curved up like they were mimicking the crimson moon. As her forehead, cheeks, necks, and every layer of her skin that she exposed had patches and withered grass and flowers. Ma'am, what did Roose Bathory sell to her? Why would she become like this? Emmeline jumped in fright as she felt the hair on her back stand up. Meanwhile, withered grass mixed with dried flowers grew from the floor, walls, doors, and ceilings and swamps. They began to isolate the room from the outside world, creating an extremely strange scene. Hello, hello. Once Roose Bathory caught the smell of a danger, he didn't attempt to converse with her. Without any hesitation, he took out a metal bottle and downed the liquid inside. Paw. He threw the bottle and his body dragged the after images as he pounced towards the mutated Windsor. His fingernails extended as he swirled with black gases. The withered grass and dry flowers that were embedded in Windsor's face made her look like a huge doll. She met him in an equally fast speed, clawing at the Roose Bathory without any aversion, being injured. Bang, bang, bang. Wait, hold up. Hold up. Sealed Vessel's playing. Let's keep this battle music playing. Hold up, hold up. I think this song works. Yeah, let's keep it playing. Bang, bang, bang. After a series of collisions, Roose Bathory was flying, sent back as he slammed into a wall. His sleeves were ripped apart, revealing the bone-deep scratches on his skin. And in the midst of his flesh, the withered grass and dried flowers slowly grew from inside out. What a monster. This was the first time Emmeline was encountering such an enemy. He huddled in the corner and nearly forgot to help his kinsman. He didn't rationally appear, and all kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind as he obsessed the battle between Roose and Bathory and Windsor. He considered how he should deal with the situation. The strangest of all is that the withered grass and dried flowers, they're likely afraid of fire. Emmeline's heart stirred as he immediately abandoned his invisibility, took out another metal bottle, twisted its lid, and downed it. He didn't speed out all liquids in his mouth. The grayish-red liquid ignited upon contact with the air, extending its scorched flames to the side. The flames stacked upon each other as the fire extended. It instantly engulfed the room in the scarlet ocean of fire. Amidst the crackling sounds, the withered grass and flowers were ignited one after another as they rapidly spread the flames with their own kind. Okay, this is pretty good, dude. Holy shit, this is pretty sick. All right, in just a few seconds, the environment was on the brink of destruction. As for the grass and flowers of Windsor's body, they were also turning aflame. At this moment, Roose Bathory had a gaping hole dug through his chest, making him lose a great portion of his combat strength. He was relying on the Sanguine's extraordinary recovery ability to barely hold up. Seeing his enemy as a flaming torch, Emmeline acutely noticed that her aura was weakening. He didn't hesitate to lunge forward, circling around Windsor, and deliver the serving clawing swipes. Beneath his feet, wisps of black gas rose. What is this black gas? Beneath his feet, wisps of black gas rose and swirled around the primordial moon believer like chains that bound her vitality. Bang, 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 bang. Intense shots burst sounded as the two figures suddenly closed the distance. This is so sick. What the fuck? All the movements within the scene had vanished in the end as Emmeline grabbed Windsor's throat with his left hand, raising her up. After hesitating for a second, he saw her hideous appearance and snapped her neck. Pa. A thin miniature. Oh, it's a freaking puppet. A thin... Now the music sounds a little too loud. Hold up. A thin miniature wooden puppet embedded with withered grass and dried flowers fell from Winsor's body as the flames in the apartment gradually died out. Emlyn yanked Winsor's mutilated head, turned around, and faced the heavy roost battery. He then pressed his free right hand to his chest, and he bowed with a smile. Thank you for your help. Seeing Roost Bathory instantly turned furious and helpless, Emlyn added in great delight, remember to hand over the puppet and the beyond characteristics to Lord Nibs. They might be problematic. After saying that, black gas coagulated behind him, turning into two illusionary backwings. Is Emlyn cooking? I think he's cooking. With a whoosh, Emlyn flapped these. What the fuck? He can fly! Wait, I don't remember him doing this. Well, I mean, shit, he is a vampire, but still, it's sick, dude. With a whoosh, Emlyn flapped his wings as he turned to fly out the window and land in the dark nearby alley. When he landed, he quickly converged the black gases and turned to look around. Seeing the Roost Bathory hadn't followed him, Emlyn heaved a sigh of relief as he pressed his fist to his mouth. As he coughed, he mumbled, I hate fire, I hate smoke. He was just about to leave Eastboro when he felt a chill run down his back. Emlyn's mind instantly tensed up as he held onto Winsor's mutilated head, slowly turning around and looked at the shadows in the corners. He first saw a very tiny figure before identifying it. The body was thin and long, akin to a wooden pole. Its eyes and mouth were curved like a crescent, and its surface was embedded with plenty of withered grass and dried flowers. It was none other than the moon puppet from before. It's targeting me. What the hell is this? I'm still very far from where Lord Nib stays. It's really dangerous outside. Thoughts surfaced in Emlyn's mind as he felt his spine turn cold and his muscles turn tense. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, he suddenly had an idea. He stared at the moon puppet and he murmured in ancient Hermes, the fool that doesn't belong to this era, the mysterious ruler above the great fog, the king of yellow and black who wields good luck. Yo, what's happening, dude? Can a man have some sleep in the middle of the night? Klein sat up as he rubbed his temples in fury. He's fucking pissed, dude. He quickly left his bed, took 4 steps counterclockwise, and he entered the space above the gray fog. He then took a seat that belonged to the fool. It's that fellow, Emlyn White. Klein gave a glance as he curiously admitted his spirituality, touching the crimson stars that represented the moon. He then saw a stiffened Emlyn. He then saw the thin, strange puppet looking straight at him. The puppet was cloaked in a rich but illusory crimson moonlight. They were undiluted like a tidal wave, making the connection with something high in the sky. At this moment, the crimson moonlight was spreading silently, enveloping Emlyn White within. There's a problem. There's something wrong with this puppet. Klein could see more with the gray fog's aid. Didn't hesitate to summon the sea god scepter from the junk pile into his hand. The blue gems on the end of the bone scepter lit up one after another, emitting a blinding luster. After chanting Mr. Fool's honorific name and seeing his assistance, Emlyn felt that he could already cold-blooded turn colder. Oh, I read that so wrong. It felt like it would slowly freeze into ice. This made his body rapidly turn stiff as he watched the moon puppet stumble and swagger towards him. At this moment, a silver bolt streaked down into the alley, causing all the gloom and the darkness to scatter. Paw. The lightning bolt sizzled into a ball of lightning and landed on the moon puppet, drowning in its swath of silver. The burst of light dissipated immediately as the strange puppet was left charred black. It lost its decoration as it collapsed. As for Emlyn, his blood no longer froze as it resumed its flow. With him quickly recovering from the stiffness, he knew that Mr. Fool was watching. He hurriedly asked softly, do you need? No. What can I sacrifice to you? He always believed that Mr. Fool adhered to the principle of equivalent exchange. Therefore, he believed that he needed to pay a corresponding price for requesting his assistance. After a brief silence, he saw the boundless gray fog and faint figure behind it. He then heard a lofty, magnificent voice. That puppet. All right, Emlyn took 2 steps forward, bent down to pick up the puppet, and cleared up the scene before quickly leaving Eastboro. As for Klein, he cautiously used Paper Angel to disrupt any divination before returning to real world. Just as he was planning to head back to bed, he suddenly discovered that the moonlight brightened outside the seam stained with blood. What? And Klein walked to the window in puzzlement. When he looked out, he saw that the crescent had turned full at some point in time. It was a scarlet-like red moon, another blood moon. Oh, wait, 4s, right? If it's a blood moon, 4s. Blood Moon Alger Wilson looked at the sky as he stared. Wait, what? The moon haunts you? Wait, why? I thought the blood moons are always timed. And there's a moon. Oh, the moon puppet is behind making a blood moon? No, this is something else. Or the one that was above. The blood moon controls the moon puppet? Wait, hold up. I'm gonna be quiet. Let's keep reading. Blood Moon. Alger Wilson looked at the sky as he steadily walked to the lightning cathedral ahead of him. This was the place that he would be giving his report tomorrow. And in the middle of the island, at the peak of the towering mountain, there was another cathedral named Chasm of the Storm. Its headquarters of the Church of Storm's headquarters, the holiest of the holy temples. The moon turned into a blood moon for some. Yeah, it just randomly turned, right? Okay, well, let's keep reading. I do find it coincidental that there's like a blood moon puppet around this time. But let's keep reading. All right, now we keep reading. I'm gonna change the song to the next battle song. We're gonna loop it. Chapter 748 is called is just a coincidence. Don't worry about it. I don't know about that one, dude. I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. Too many coincidences, you know? Chapter 748 is called A Duet. Inside the Lightning Cathedral, the high and spacious dome arched continuously. There wasn't any black space, with gold and blue as the main colors. It made anyone who walked beneath it subconsciously feel that the place was scared and solemn, thus making them bow their heads. Oliver Wilson often made contact with a secret existence, and he often gathered in the palace of a deity's residence. As a result, he no longer had a longing for this. He wasn't as respectful as before, but he still had to put on the act. Like the other sailors around him, he kept his head down as he lightened his footsteps without even daring to breathe clearly. In the silent atmosphere, they're led by the priest all the way to the clergyman quarters at the back of the cathedral, with each of them getting a room. After closing the door, Olger saw the sanguine moonlight shine in the window. It made the environment turn cold and sinister, as all the countless rays seemed to be observing the real world through a thin curtain. Every time the blood moon appeared, Every time the blood moon appeared, one spirituality would be enhanced. Powers that stem from the spirituality and hell would receive a significant boost, with the negative emotions of living beings reaching an explosive stats. The higher the sequence, the more obvious it would be. Faintly, Olger heard the sobbing, low shouts and whispering. This was completely different from the solemnity previously he felt in the Lightning Cathedral. Illusionary arms appeared before his eyes as he reached outwards from the walls, floors, and ceilings like three-dimensional pale forests. Olger knew of the abnormalities of the blood moon, so he removed his captain's hat without panicking at all. He entered the bathroom and washed his face. During this process, he suddenly heard a distant singing voice. Wow, you are really far, bro. That's crazy, dude. Congrats, dude. You're almost done. The singing voice was indistinct, as though it came from the middle of the island. It kept echoing endlessly, as though it was right beside Olger. It didn't make him feel honored, for it was akin to a woman who was away for her family and loved ones. Singing slowly and steadily as she looked at the surging tides, Olger pulled at a tower and wiped his face before cooking his head to listen. He gradually found, as he took out a small iron box from his priest's inner robes and placed it close to his ear. In it was the ocean socks from beyond a characteristic he had purchased from the world. He suspected that the residual mental imprint on it was temporarily enhanced by the blood moon. As the metal box came close, the singing by Olger's ears instantly became partly clear, melancholic, sorrowful, wistful, and painful. But apart from that, there was still the ethereal and ancient voice sounding from it, forming a clear boundary from where the clearing sinking, as though they were in a duet. Whose voice is that? It sounds like an elf, an item of the church that stems from the elves. This ocean songster. Almost done. 400 chapters. Almost done. Dude, that's more than 2/3, bro. You're like final act, you know. This ocean songster beyond a characteristic on me comes from an elf. Oh, it does. Olger nodded as he came up with 3. Due to them sharing the same stellar pathway, the Church of Storms had always been in search of the elven relics. They were used and concoct potions made into sealed artifacts or isolated underground. Those with relatively fewer negative effects were rewarded with clergymen. Therefore, it wasn't odd that something similar would be stimulated the night of the blood moon. If it's a mystical item, there wouldn't be a problem. It's a sealed artifact. It means it's definitely not simple in the voice that can penetrate the isolation barrier. Olger reined in his thoughts, brushed his teeth, and went to bed. He soon fell asleep, and he had a dream. Yeah, let's try just playing Elden Ring in the background. It's going to be low and loud. It's going to come and go. After an unknown period of time, Olger suddenly felt a little lucid, vaguely aware that he was having a dream, but he automatically sized up his surroundings and discovered that above him was rippling dark blue seawater, which was stacked up layer after layer and blocked the view of the sky. Ahead of him was a beautiful palace made of coral. It was tall, spectacular, dark, and gloomy. Olger subconsciously walked towards the palace, walked into the open doors. Inside were columns of coral that helped up an exaggerated dome. The walls in Doom were filled with mirrors depicting the terror of a storm. Over 100 meters away, there was a throne embedded with sapphire emeralds and lustrous pearls above a 9-stepped staircase that was extremely striking. Olger looked over and saw a woman in complicated ancient dress sitting in on it. Her hair was black and held up to a bun. Her facial outline was soft and her features were exquisite. She had a beauty that seemed timeless. The woman's expression was cold and her ears sharp. Her deep brown eyes looked at Olger from a commanding position. In her hand was a golden wine cup with complicated patterns. Olger was just about to say something when her eyes emitted silver light resembling the bright flash of lightning. Tearing through their dreams, Olger sat up, subconsciously gasped for breath. He found that the dream both blurry and clear at the same time. The woman's appearance was blurry, as well as the details of the mural murals and coral palace, but her eyes that contained lightning and her sharp ears were clear. A high-ranking elf, under the effects of the blood moon, her relics resonated with the ocean songster beyond her characteristic I have, resulting in it influencing my dream. As Aldrich guessed, he wondered which item it would be. Due to his limited standings, the number of sealed artifacts and mystical items he knew were limited. However, he knew certain dangers that others didn't know, so he quickly thought of a possible target. Calamity Kokonim. The Book of Calamity she left behind has likely been sent to Pazu Island. After making the report and departing, I'll seek Miss Fool's advice and see if there will be any unexpected influences regarding this matter. Olger didn't dare recite the Fool's honorific names to the Church of Storm's headquarters. After daybreak, he didn't show any signs of abnormality. Under the servant's lead, he entered a room with a long table, and he was questioned by 3 mandated Punisher decons. Among these 3 decons, only one of them possessed dark blue hair. This was because this was a necessary change that would happen from consuming the Sailor Pathway potion. However, this trait would quite stubbornly be passed down, just like the elves. Many of them with black hair would end up with blue hair. Nowadays, mixed bloods with elven blood mostly had blue hair. Alger sat at the end of the long table as he systematically answered the Decon's questions. He mentioned what he had done at sea and what had planned to do, and what he had succeeded, well, his failures. And this would be compared to the description from his crew to prevent anyone from lying. Towards the end of his report, the Decon with dark blue hair glanced at Alger. He asked with a hoarse voice, "Do you know Admiral Star's Catlia?" "Not only do I know her," Alger was nearly taken aback as he answered out of some thought, "I met her at the pirate convention." From volume 2, dude. In volume 2, he met her. The Decon didn't harp on the question, as he directly said, "Think of means to get to know her. Try to investigate Gurman Sparrow's situation from her." Oh, he's long gone. Gurman ain't coming back for a while, dude. So that's how it is. It's because Gurman hunted Admiral Blood. Alger deliberately asked, feigning his ignorance, what did Gurman Sparrow do again? The dark blue hair Decon said in a peeved manner, "He nearly destroyed Bayam." Alright, this isn't something you should know. In summary, remember, Gurman Sparrow is a very dangerous person. There's a secret cult backing him that if only he knew. That organization had a demigod at odds with the Rose School of Thought. If only they knew the real thing. Nearly destroyed Bayam, a demigod in the organization at odds with the Rose School of Thought. Alger deliberately didn't hide his shock. He originally imagined that the focus was placed on Gurman because of his hunting of Admiral Blood Center, but Hugh knew that the reason was far more complicated and ludicrous than he had imagined. What did Gurman Sparrow do? When I pass by Bayam, I should find the actual spot to take a look. Also, isn't our Tarot Club's arch enemy, the Aurora Order? Isn't Mr. Fool always targeting the true creator? Why did it change? No, why is it the additional Rose School of Thought? Alger muttered to himself inwardly. Now he has questions. Very mysterious. As for the Terror Club having a demigod, he wasn't surprised. He even found it logical. How could an ancient existence not have a demigod under him? Besides, back when Vice Admiral Hurricane Quintigus died silently in a strange manner, he was already convinced that Mr. Fool had a high sequence blessed. And Volume 1. Thankfully, my meeting with Gurman Sparrow was very secretive, otherwise things would have been troublesome. Alger listened in silence without asking any question. Like before, he accepted the missions and got up to leave the room. Backlands North Borough, outside 160 Buckland Street, servants stood in the 2 rows to welcome their master's arrival. With white hair and his temples and deep blue eyes, Dwayne Dantes wore a tailcoat and wow, I'm a little itchy. Well, a tailcoat and a top hat with an inland golden cane, together with the butler Walter and Valen Richardson, who walked in between his servants and arrived at the entrance of the 3-story building. Waiting there was housekeeper Tanja, who had long been selected. She was in her early 40s, and her hair was tied neatly. She had ordinary looks, but wore an experienced demeanor. She wore golden-rimmed glasses and a black and white dress, which was different from the other maidservants. From the information received in the interview, Klein knew that the lady was born in East Borough. She was a believer of the Evernight Goddess, and she had chosen to be trained by a charitable organization by the church at the age of 15, making her become a qualified maidservant. After more than 10 years of hard work, as well as the free lessons from the night schools, she was promoted from the lowest ranking maidservant into a tycoon's household to a lady's maid. She later followed the tycoon's daughter when she got married, and she became a housekeeper until the family met with financial crisis, forcing her to leave. Aw, that's sad. She was extremely experienced when it came to managing a household. After this lady signed the contract, she received £1,000 from Dwayne Dantes as petty cash from the month before entering an agreement with butler Walter. Damn! On whether they should purchase or rent a carriage. From her point of view, since Mr. Dante's goal was to enter high society and move into Westboro or even Empersboro, a carriage needed to be custom-made to not appear inadequate. Before that, they could rent a high-end carriage for a year and wait until they there was hope of him becoming a noble before they had one custom made. It was a more reasonable choice that didn't waste money or appear inadequate. She convinced Walter and of course Klein this was because renting a high-end carriage with almost disconnected power. Well, the horse cost was only 88 pounds and two-wheeled carriage cost only 42 pounds. Of course, someone who controls the household expenditures needs to be someone who's good at accounting. Klein felt poignant as he smiled at Tanja before stepping through the three-story household. This was the stage for which the tycoon Dwayne Dantes would be acting on. That's so much money, dude. All right, chapter 749 is called The Moon's Puppet. Upon entering the house... we updated it? Yes, we are updated. Upon entering the house, the first thing Klein saw was a foyer. It was very spacious here, with several chairs, umbrellas placed there. Furthermore, the furnishing was elegant. The decorations... Tien... Oh my god, level 5. Dude, thank you. Bro, Tien... Dude, thank you so much, man. I know you're at chapter 1000 and you're here hanging out with us, man. Thank you so much. Dude, that means a lot, man. Dude, we've passed 30 members. The goal is to wear clown makeup for the episode reacts now, and that's gonna be our new emote. That is the goal. I don't know if I'm gonna have time this week or episode 4, so it might have to be episode 5 and on. But I promise you guys that we're gonna have some new banger custom emotes. I got you guys. Thank you so much, dude. I hope you enjoy the stream. It was very spacious here with several chairs, umbrellas places here. Furthermore, the furnishing was elegant and decorations was befitting of his status. If he had known the structure ahead of time from his inspection, Klein might have imagined it to be a living room. After passing through a second main door, the sight before his eyes opened up. It was a huge hall that couldn't accommodate dozens of dancing guests. In the middle hall was a brightly colored thick and plush carpet. Surrounding it were spaces covered with a bright marble tiles with a piano, stone sculptures, and other decorations decorating the hall. There was also stone columns that held up the second floor with inland ornaments. To the left was a series of floor-to-ceiling windows. Damn, man, this is a nice-ass house. Gotta love it, LOTM, buddy. I love you guys, man. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And the beyond there was lush green lawn and blossom gardening. To the right were walls, wooden doors, and a corridor that led the loungers, storm rooms, washrooms, kitchens, and butler rooms, etc. Bro, what is this house, man? That's crazy. This is like a dream house, man. The hall was 2 stories high, and there was a crystal chandelier hanging down from its ceiling. It instantly made one imagine what it would look like when night fell. Ahead of him were 2 staircases that led to the second floor. The winging corridor here was square in shape, and an empty out section in the middle, and the middle happened to be where the carpeted hall was. All Klein needed to do was hold a cup of wine and stand behind the railings of the second floor, and he could leisurely take in the sights of a ball below. There were many rooms in the second floor. There was a living room, an activity room, and a dining room, washrooms, and the billiard rooms, and many bedrooms. If any guests needed to stay for the night, they would stay there. Damn. Similarly, on the second floor, there were 2 staircases that led to the third floor. That was where Dwayne Dantes stayed. There was an exaggerated master bedroom with a bar counter equipped with open room that allowed one to sunbathe and enjoy the scenery. There was a study which could be deemed as a miniature library, as well as 2 changing rooms and small bedrooms for the valets and literally a room just for the valets and maids on night duty. There was also rooms that met for the household members in the bathrooms, but Klein was currently a single man. As for the other servants, they lived in a terrace house behind the main mansion. The main mansion, dude. In another direction was a stable. The mansion's underground area was equally spacious with a huge storeroom and wine cellar. Taking off his coat, Klein stood on the balcony in the half-open room on the third floor with his back straight. He took in the sights of the surrounding streets and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. There really is a reason why it's so expensive. The rent of £350 really can't be considered a waste. He had already paid a year's rent yesterday's afternoon, and he can only force himself to enjoy this place that he'd rented. Meanwhile, he had also directly paid Walter a year's salary and £115, as it was very possible that he would flee once he obtained the Antigonus family notebook. He didn't want to affect his butler's livelihood. By the same logic, he had long paid housekeeper Tanja her annual salary of £42. It allowed this lady to realize how generous Mr. Dwayne Dantes was, as well as how mattered he was. Through the 2 head servants, negotiations, and hard work, they hired all the servants. Damn. The annual salary of a mill steward was £30, and his valet Richards was £35. The 2 footmen in charge of the valeting guests and serving the dining table each received £30, and the 2 ladies' maids were £18 each. OnlyFans when? Soon, guys. Soon. Stay tuned. It's gonna be called the instead of OnlyFans, we're gonna title our page Only Fools. 18 pounds each. The 2 chambermaids were 12 pounds each, and the 2 handymen were 12 pounds each. Apart from them, the cook was 30 pounds, the assistant cook was 15 pounds, the scullery maid was 13 pounds, the parlor maid was 11 pounds, the nurse... Damn, how many maids does he have? 11 pounds, the nursery governors was 25 pounds, and the steward's boy was 10 pounds, and the 2 coachmen were 25 pounds each. He did get 2 coachmen. Remember, he's like, you only need 1 technically, but you're gonna need 2. Or like 1, and then you have like an apprentice, 25 pounds each. The 2 gardeners were 20 pounds each. The 2 laundresses were 10 pounds each, all for the total 413 pounds. It costs about 8 pounds a week. Together with the 2 head servants' annual salary, Klein needed to pay 570 pounds a year, making it approximately 11 pounds a week. This was still without including the expenditures for food, clothing, and all kinds of daily necessities. Bro, this shit just doubled. Dude, he is fucking dying on the inside. He's like, bro, I need to kill a demigod ASAP and make some money. I'm telling you, I think he's gonna cash in his own check for Grim and Sparrow. I really think he's gonna cash in like his own bounty for Grim and Sparrow. I'll pay 10 to 20 pounds a week without any income the moment I open my eyes. Klein did a mental calculation as he forced himself to cast his gaze onto the garden. In the afternoon, he paid off the rental fee for the 2 carriages and servants' first week's salary. Together with him giving housekeeper Tangia 1,000 pounds for the daily expenses, he only had 1,286 pounds and 18 gold coins left. That's literally how much money he had in like volume 1. Or like barely. Like that's how much he was able to scrape. Or I think he was under it. However, he would receive the payments for Miss Justice and Madam Hermit within the week. I wonder how long the 1,000 pounds can last Tangia. Just to store up the required alcoholic beverages for the balls would cost a few hundred pounds. The rich Mr. Dwayne Dantes fell into deep thought as he could hardly extradite himself from it. To calm his emotions, he decided to head above the gray fog while the butler and servants were busy with handling the household chores. He wanted to study the strange puppet which Emmeline Wyden sacrificed. After the blood moon happened, Klein had no choice but return to the mysterious world and pull force into it. He resisted the urge to sleep as he listened to her drone about her daily life in Backland. After everything was over, he was just too tired. He accepted Emmeline's sacrifice. After confirming that there wasn't anything weird, he returned to the real world and collapsed into bed. After straightening his stylish dark color vest, Klein walked to the door and said to the waiting valet, Richardson, I have a habit of sleeping in the afternoon for 45 minutes. I don't want anyone to disturb me. Yes, sir, Richardson answered humbly. He was a legitimate son with mixed blood. His father was Loen-styled, a supervisor at the manor, while his mother was a native from East Balham who was a slave in the same manor. Really? That's mean. After he was born, he was met with discrimination and bullying. This resulted in a weak and submissive character, and because he was so good looking, he was suitable for valet guests. He was selected by the manor's master to be a valet before being brought to Backland. After both houses of the Lone Kingdom had abolished slavery, he found himself out of a job. All he could do was seek the help of the City Family Service Assistance Association. Before Klein had served the 2 households and committed some mistakes, but he did build up a wealth of experiences. He caught Butler Walter's notice and he became Dwayne Dante's valet. Damn, man, look at that. He literally just saved him from like that whole fucking hellish life. After looking at Richardson, who stood straight at the tall, with a height that was almost identical to himself, Klein indiscriminately shook his head and sighed. This guy can clearly be a celebrity who can only be a servant in the day and age. Furthermore, he's such a tall man, but he appears cowardly and weak. However, this can also be considered an advantage. He's obedient, silent, and submissive. He does whatever his master instructs him to do, and he will absolutely not dare to make his own decisions. If I were to have a valet with me If I only have a valet with me requiring him to handle all kinds of matters, Richardson will definitely not be up to mark. However, I still have a butler Walter and so many other servants. He can handle the other members with experiences, capabilities. Without musing further, Klein locked the door and returned to the side of the reclining chair. He took 4 steps counterclockwise and entered above the gray fog. He sat at the seat of the fool and had beckoned with his hand to make the charred moon puppet fly over the land before him. After scrutinizing it, Klein didn't discover anything odd about it. Hence, he conjured a pen and paper and wrote the divination statements, its origins. Putting down his fountain pen, Klein waited for a few seconds before picking up the piece of paper and leaning back against his chair. My spiritual intuition didn't stop me from making the divination statement. It means that the land and danger of the moon puppet isn't as bad as the rose school of thoughts beyond her characteristics. Klein mumbled as he skillfully recited the divination statement. In the gray, hazy world, he saw an altar with a circle of fiery torches around it. On the altar, there was what he suspected to be human skin with traces of blood everywhere. In the middle were 3 candles with a few puppets that resembled thin wooden poles. These miniature puppets had curved eyes and mouths as though they corresponded to the crimson crescent in the sky. Therefore, he continued hanging these creepy smiles as the withered grass and dried flowers remained embedded in their bodies. A priest in a dark red robe was circling the altar with heavy steps, as though he was dancing a dance created by an epileptic patient. At some point in time, moonlight I can't read that word. Epileptic patient. At some point in time, moonlight gathered and shone on the puppet and increased in brightness. Towards the end, it resembled the gentle bidding of water waves. The ritual quickly came to an end as the priest picked up the thin puppet, walked to the human body bound to a frame beside him. Instantly, he stabbed it through the body's eye socket. Ugh. Amidst tragic cries, the scene quickly changed. The dead man with the moon puppet in his eye socket was raised somewhat in an ordinary manner. The scene once again skipped and showed further development. Every full moon or blood moon, the moon's glow would scatter over the grave, seeping into it like water as the surrounding darkness turned gloomy. Klein opened his eyes and adjusted his seating posture. He had a general idea of the moon puppet's origins. It came from a prayer ritual to the primordial moon. It was a ritual lasting for centuries. Centuries? What the? Over the past few centuries, they had absorbed the powers of the Crimson Moon, mutating bit by bit until they were exhumed by the colonists. They usually didn't exhibit any oddities, and something only happened when a primordial moon believer activated them with the correct method. As for what would happen, Klein had no idea. In a particular sense, the primitives are equivalent to primordial moon's chosen ones. Last night, after I smote one to death, that evil god was enraged, thus causing the blood moon. Wait, what? Who? Last night, after I smote one to death. Who did he smite to death? Smite to death. That evil god was enraged, thus causing the blood moon. Klein. So, I'm sorry. The primordial moon caused the blood moon. Out of rage, Klein gently tapped the model table edge as he came to preliminary judgment. The primordial moon's wraith directly changes the moon phenomena, making it a blood moon. If this theory is right, it means that in the domain of the Crimson Moon, the goddess is inferior to the goddess is inferior. Evernight. Oh, the puppet. I'm like, who? Okay, so when he got the puppet. Okay, got it. The puppet. I'm like, who? Like the one controlling the puppet? No, right? Okay, the puppet. So he's speculating that the goddess is inferior to the primordial moon. She might only have the title name as she grasps a grade 0 sealed artifact. Klein nodded slightly as she attempted to divine the weakness of the moon puppet. Not only is she probably inferior, but you can infer that she is inferior because her logo is only a half crescent moon rather than a full moon. And then I know people did say, or it was revealed that she would technically represent the stars. Klein nodded slightly. She attempted to divine the weakness of the moon puppet. This time he saw sunlight and lightning. This means that the beyonder powers in the sun domain and lightning for the storm domain are best at dealing with it. As Klein interpreted the information, he threw the moon puppet into the junk pile and returned to he has such a crazy ass junk pile and returned to the real world. An hour later, Walter, who was wearing a starched, do you guys have like a junk drawer? Because I have, my junk drawer is right under here. I have a junk drawer. Just like he has a junk pile, I have a junk drawer. An hour later, Walter, who was wearing a starched suit and white gloves, knocked on the door. He bowed and said, "Sir, I'll be printing your name card in a while." Wait, this means that the beyond powers in the sun domain and lightning from the storm domain are best at dealing with it. As Klein interpreted the information, he threw the moon puppet into the junk pile and returned to the real world. Okay, we weren't lost. An hour later, Walter, who was wearing a starched suit and white gloves, knocked on the door and he bowed. "Sir, I'll be printing your name card in a while. They'll be sent to the neighbors along with some gifts. They will take a few days to observe to determine your situation. If they're willing to accept it, they will send gifts and invite you to their guests. Does your name card need a title added?" Title, the fool that doesn't belong to this era. Klein lampooned as he replied with a smile. "Merchant Dwayne Dances from Desi would suffice." Walter nodded and said, "Based on your wishes, I'll immediately arrange for you to have etiquette lessons. The focus will be on dancing, and I've hired a professional teacher." Oh, he's going to have a new teacher. Next chapter. All right, let's keep going. Chapter 750. After we failed to attempt to connect to Twitch and dual stream again, we'll try switching it up again next stream. Chapter 750 is called Attraction. Having read many magazines, Klein knew that the social life he wanted to enter had many balls, so he wasn't surprised by Walter's suggestion. He said with a nod, "Okay." With that said, he looked sideways at the valet Richardson. Preparing for the carriage, I'll head over to St. Samuel Cathedral. Klein vividly remembered that his main goal was to act as a devout believer of the Evernight goddess in order to get to know the corresponding clergyman, and from here he would find a way to sneak into China's Gate. Therefore, he had planned to pray at the cathedral whenever he had the time to express his sincerity and get to know the members of the clergy. "Yes, sir," Richardson answered politely. Before long, Klein boarded his rented luxurious four-wheeled carriage, decked out into a coat and top hat. As he enjoyed the scenery on his journey, he sampled the black tea that had abandoned with a silence of lemon. In fact, there was a tiny bar and counter in the carriage, and in it, butler Walter had specifically prepared golden lanty, winter black rant, and other distilled liquor, as well as all kinds of red and white wine that came from Intis. However, Klein wasn't someone who enjoyed drinking. As a beyonder, he didn't like the feeling of being tipsy. It made him recall the feeling of losing control. Therefore, he used the excuse of him heading to the cathedral so as to get his valet Richardson to prepare a pot of Marquise black tea. If it's possible, I would actually like a cup of sweet iced tea. It's something from the south. Klein said half jokingly to Richardson. I will prepare it next time. Richardson immediately replied. Klein chuckled and shook his head. No, there's no need. That wouldn't appear decent. Once I'm more familiar with neighbors and have hosted Desi-styled banquets, she's going to be hosting banquets. Whew. We can prepare some sweet iced tea. I believe their children will like it. When Richardson realized that he was mistaking his employer's intentions, he hurriedly said in Fletcher, I'll keep it in mind. It only took 20 minutes to get from 160 Buckland Street to the St. Samuel Cathedral at Phillip Street on foot. If it wasn't because he needed to hire a coachman and rent a carriage to project an image befitting of his status, Klein would have rather walked over to digest his food and strengthen his body. Soon the carriage stopped along the square outside the cathedral. Klein held his gold inlaid cane, got out of the carriage, and stopped there to enjoy the pigeon silence. After eating the cathedral and coming over to the main prayer hall, he passed his top hat and cane to Richardson. He found a seat near the aisle and sat down. However, he heard his hands clasped with his hands sincerely and silently prayed. Richardson sat behind him to his side, putting items in place as he glanced at the dark, sacred emblem on the altar. He then closed his eyes. In the serene atmosphere, Klein felt his spirituality lightly scatter. He wasn't too surprised by this, because him praying in the mass of the cathedral would encounter something familiar. The tiny bits of spirituality that carried pious beliefs gathered together to provide powers to China's gates seal the underground after an unknown period of time. His spiritual perception triggered as he opened his eyes and looked diagonally across from him. Standing there was an elder dressed in a black clergyman robe. His hair was sparse and his face looked pale. He resembled a dead man. From afar, he had a cold aura with a lacking expression. He blended in with the parish hall's dark environment to a certain extent. A keeper, Klein made a judgment from a single glance. He closed his eyes again and continued praying. Of course, he had already remembered the man's facial features: big nose, grayish-blue eyes, lost facial skin, and no facial hair. The elder, dressed as a clergyman, had sat down as well. He focused on praying to the goddess. Inside the prayer hall, the wall in front of him with a few holes, pure light shone in from him like resplendent stars. It made the dark environment appear gentle and holy. Time ticked by as Klein felt his spiritual perception trigger again. He carefully opened his eyes and saw that the black-robed keeper had left his seat and entered a passageway to the side. That should lead back to the cathedral. The keepers stay inside the cathedral. They have no family and don't have their own residence. From their conditions, is not that surprising either. Furthermore, the keepers of China's Gate are monitoring by the bishops, so it's a normal precaution. This means I have to become friends with the priests and bishops of St. Samuel Cathedral to obtain the freedom to enter the area. At the back of the cathedral, Klein didn't sneak anymore and glanced as he closed his eyes and considered various problems. After some thought, he slowly got up and walked to the altar, standing in front of the donation box. He took out £50 in cash and devoutly threw it. This made the bishop and priest on duty look over. Their gazes turned friendly as they remembered his appearance. After doing this, Klein nodded gently as the clergyman turned around and walked down the aisle towards the exit. Richardson held his hat and cane and followed closely behind. Out of the prayer hall, he walked towards the main entrance alongside a series of intricate murals and colored pane windows that lined to the top. At this point, a few figures walked in, leading them to a middle-aged man with a long sideburn and soft facial features. He wore a black trench coat without any gloves, nor did he carry a cane. Behind him was a young man dressed in a similar trench coat. He had black hair and green eyes, and he looked handsome with his randomly styled hair. He looked like he hadn't combed it after waking up in the morning. Klein was especially familiar with his looks and figures. It felt as though he hadn't seen each other for years. Leonard Mitchell. Klein's pupils constricted a little, but he didn't stop at all. He maintained his pace and started as he walked towards a few Nighthawks in the black trench coats. Yes, Klein was certain that they were Nighthawks. When they met, he casually swept a gaze at Leonard and company before passing them and walking towards the main entrance. The main entrance was open and the clouds outside were thin. That was pretty, the sunlight and the pigeons were flying. No. That heist was one of the best arcs. The OGs are back. Bro, they're back, dude. Leonardo Mitchell glanced at the believers who walked past him out of boredom and retracted his gaze. He said with a sigh, I hope we can stay in Backland for a few days this time and have a good rest. Oh, bro, he has to join the Terror Club this arc. There's no shot he doesn't join this volume. There's just no shot and have a good rest. The case this time wasn't only dangerous and thrilling, but also required us to be tense the entire time. His team of red gloves had just cracked a human skin dawning devil case, and they threw the captured 2 targets. This seemed easy on the surface, but it wasn't simply at all. They went through the plenty of setbacks and tribulations before completing the mission with great difficulty. Every member was exhausted both in mind and bodily. Captain Soy shook his head with a smile. This is the life of the red gloves. You should know that this would be how it would be back when you chose to join. However, congratulations on advancing to Sol Azure. Dude, let's go, dude. Leonard Mitchell curled his lips into a smile. It's slower than I had expected. Also, Captain Soy, you finally reached sequence 5. Wait. Leonard Mitchell curls his lips into small. It's slower than I expected. Also, Captain Soy, you finally reached sequence 5. I'm sorry. Leonard hit Sol Azure. Leonard. And then he says, you finally reached sequence 5. This isn't a problem with the church. If I could have endured it better, I could have become a spirit warlock earlier. Soist wiped his smile away as he walked into the prayer hall corridor. Prayed to the gods. They will effectively eliminate your mental stress, allowing you to recite. He's gone up another sequence. Holy shit, dude. That's so crazy. It will effectively eliminate your mental stress, allowing you to recover. As he spoke, the team of the Red Gloves entered the dark and serene hall as they found a spot to sit down. Leonardo was just about to focus on praying when he suddenly heard a slightly aged voice ring in his mind. The person from just now is problematic who? Leonardo kept his head down as he asked with surprised voice. The slightly aged voice replied, one of the men you met at the entrance. I'm living in your body, and my strength hasn't recovered, so I wasn't able to see too clearly. Leonardo called and asked softly, what do you mean problematic? He has an ancient aura? Wait. The person from just now is problematic. Did he sense Klein? A Beyonder who has lived for a very long period of time, Leonardo mumbled, I will try to investigate. Simultaneously, he thought, old man must be hiding certain things. He seldom volunteers to tell me that someone's problematic, yet to be so vague about it. After I find the target and confirm that there's no danger for the time being, I'll leave it. I don't want to be embroiled in conflict of some undying monsters from the 4th epoch. If that person will really bring about a calamity, I'll directly report the arch enemy. Bro, what? Wait, so he so wait, Klein not only has aura, he has ancient aura. The fact that the parasite is like he has ancient aura, that is so crazy. What the fuck? That person from just now was problematic. He has ancient aura. Dude, so like not only is he aura farming, he's ancient aura farming. That's crazy. So like how old is the fucking gray fog? Like this, like low key, man, the gray fog like has to be the origins, right? Like it has to be like the original sealed artifact. Like this is like where everything came from, like the creation of myth. Like everything must stem from like the gray fog. Like everything must stem from this domain. He has an ancient aura, and and then that's how I buy he has an ancient aura. A Beyonder who has lived for a very long period of time. Leonardo, no. I will try to investigate. Simultaneously, he thought, old man must be hiding certain things. He seldom volunteers to tell me that someone is problematic, yet to be so vague about it. After they find the target and confirm that there's no danger and joins the Terror Club, for the time being, I'll leave it. I don't want to be embroiled in the conflict of some undying monster from the 4th epoch. If that person will really bring about a calamity, I'll directly report it to the Archbishop. An apartment in Sherwood Borough. This is the money I borrowed from you. Forrest handed 220 pounds to Shio. She had already received the 100 pounds from Miss Moon and the 500 pounds from Ma'am Hermit. I'd pay for it. Shio the Wretched grabbed as her measly blonde, unsmoothed hair looked at the money and raised her head to look at Forrest. She blurted, you really are involved in illegal gambling. I have to tell you, such gambling must be a scam and trap. They let you win in order to make you lose more. Even though you're a trick master, you have a chance of fooling them. She gambled scams might have other Beyonders hiding in it. Stop. Forrest lowered her hand. She said in bemused anger, do I look like someone who would participate in illegal gambling? Yes. Shio didn't hesitate in her reply. If I don't stop you, you wouldn't have just been smoking cigarettes. You'd even been smoking cannabis. That's because I needed to numb myself due to the pain brought by the full moon's ravings. I no longer needed. Forrest didn't debate with Shio, but as she directly explained, I sold the mysticism knowledge I know at the Beyonder gatherings. Had the person was very generous and had paid several £100. is that Shio instantly threw the problem to the back of her mind and said, there's been a new Beyonder gathering that appeared recently in Eastboro. I've been invited. A new Beyonder gathering. Forrest was first taken aback before feeling a sense of anticipation. According to her teacher, Dorian Gray and Mr. Full, she knew that Lewis Wayne was an oracle of the Aurora Order. Lewis Wayne was an oracle of the Aurora Order. It's going to be such a crazy fight, dude. She's getting exposed. His arrival in Backland was likely to replace the missing Mr. A so as to rebuild the Aurora. Oh, he's replacing him. Damn. So we just took in a saint. I mean, not a, or was it Oracle? His arrival in Backland. I lost my place. His arrival in Backland was likely to replace the missing Mr. A so as to rebuild the Aurora Order's faction in the big city. Therefore, there was a solid chance that he had disguised himself to organize a new Beyonder gathering. Forrest thought for a moment as she seemingly minded to Shio, are you going to join it? Of course, I have to prepare the interrogator formula potion. Shio answered decisively. Forrest nodded and... Oh, that's not good. Forrest nodded and covered her mouth to yawn. Remember to bring me along when you have a privilege of inviting a new member. Next chapter! All right, reading. Chapter 771 is called Loen-styled Euphemism. Late at night, 7 Pine Street. Leonard Mitchell sat on a chair with his legs raised on the side of his desk. Following that, he leaned back, causing the wooden headrest to creak from the pressure. His breathing gradually turned long and slower. After an unknown period of time, his eyelids dropped and covered his eyes. At this moment, Leonard's spirit had arrived in the gray, hazy world, but he was still in his bedroom. He flew to the window and saw thick gray fog blanket the nearby streets and extend outwards. It seemed to be embraced all of Backland. The street lamps along the streets and the warm light from different houses appeared abnormally dim. They were only able to illuminate a very thin region, and everything seemed to be tainted with a sense of blurriness. At the same time, blobs of illusionary overall lights appeared as they enveloped a house in an intersecting manner, as though it was the source of their existence. This was the city through a nightmare's eyes. Leonard followed up on his previous investigations and leaped out the window into a nightmare state. He then flew to 17 Mink Street. He didn't attempt to storm it. He stood at the door in the thick fog as he politely pulled the doorbell. Chuko. I thought it said Chocobo. Chuko. Dressed in his nightgown, Stelline Samir opened the door. Oh, she back? She placed her silver inland plated fan at her chest as she asked in confusion and puzzlement, who are you looking for? She was none other than Klein's landlord back when he was acting as Sherlock Moriarty. She was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed lady in her 30s. Leonard had already changed into black and white checkered police uniform. He casually showed his identification and asked, do you know Sherlock Moriarty? Trapped in the dream, Stelline reaction was very slow. She asked after a few seconds if something happened to him. Just as she asked, her impression of Sherlock Moriarty appeared beside her under Leonard's influence. He wore a half-top hat, a double-breasted frock coat. He's going to get to the bottom of this, huh? Gold-rimmed spectacles on his nose and a bushy mustache around his mouth. This was identical to the information he previously received about Sherlock Moriarty. Hence, he didn't show any doubts and said, he's been involved in the case and is undergoing an investigation. I hope you can cooperate with us. All right, Stelline wished to raise her chin, but for some reason, she felt a little horrified. Leonard thought for a second and asked, since when did he rent this place from you? Early September last year, Stelline said after recalling her memories. Leonard continued asking, what do you know of him? Or should I say, what kind of person do you think he is? When that was mentioned, Stelline appears as though she had long considered the answer to such a question. He comes from Mitzirshire, and he has an accent from that area. He's a very capable detective, and he once exposed the adultery which Mary's husband was undertaking. However, his income isn't too high. He doesn't even hire a full-time housemaid. All he could do is to get my maid to help him part-time. My children told me that he's good at telling stories, especially detective-related stories. This might be why he had chosen this profession. Without giving Leonard a chance to interrupt her, she droned on incessantly. He's not as boorish like the typical detectives. He went to a grammar school and studied history. What leaves me most envious of all is how he obtained Mary's gratitude. He joined the Quilling Club when its members are people with significant status. I've only been there a few times. Later, he apparently became famous in the detective circles, and private detectives often came to look for him. Leonard lost his patience listening. He's over it. Leonard, no, that's not what I want to hear. Leonard lost his patience listening to her drone on as he couldn't help but rub his temples. He had failed to obtain any useful information from Miss Stelline apart from Sherlock Moriarty's poor financial situation and him being good at telling detective stories. The rest was within the scope of what he had previously investigated. He even knew that Sherlock Moriarty had good ties with Isinger Staden. Next, I'll investigate those from the Quilling Club who had good relationships with Sherlock Moriarty. Once he patiently finished listening to Miss Stelline's droning, he merely thanked her and left her dream. 160 Buckland Street inside Dwayne Dante's mansion. And the hall that could accommodate more than 100 dancers. Klein was embracing a lady in her 30s as they dance. Okay. Yo, what's up, man? Yo, what's up, Bullseye? Oh, you're on vacation? What's up, dude? Hey, Bullseye, if you rewind back to our intro, we used your honorific intro. Hey, if you're heading out, I hope you have a good day, man. Thank you, guys. And the hall that could accommodate more than 100 dancers, Klein was embracing a lady in her 30s as they danced. This was the etiquette teacher that Walter had hired. Her name was Wahan Heinsen. She had a common name, but she wasn't ordinary at all. Her facial features were only above average, but her disposition was impeccable. Her every action was filled with charm. According to Walter's introduction, she was born in the Baron's family. She received a good education from a young age and later entered the palace. She had the job of count lady until she was married. I read that a little wrong. As her family had declined and her husband's financial situation was only ordinary, being a believer of the Evernight goddess prompted her to choose to become a private tutor in etiquette. She often went to families of noble tycoons to teach their children. Although the butler didn't spell it out, Klein knew that he couldn't perform badly in front of this lady, or there was no way to save his reputation. The way members of high society asked the person's situation was mainly through common acquaintances, and at times the interaction between servants also maintained. With nimble footsteps and gracious moves, the black-haired Wahan nodded approvingly. Mr. Dantes, it's hard for me to imagine you not having learned the dance steps before. In less than half an hour, you are as skilled as a noble who received education on this from a young age. It is all thanks to your teachings. Klein gave a humble smile as he wore a warm, humble look. With the clown's balance dancing in a very easy matter for him, Wahana lowered her head and chuckled softly. You're a gentleman who can really make a lady happy. Oh, okay. She immediately raised her light brown eyes and swept her gaze across Dwayne Dante's silver sideburns and deep blue eyes. That's the best praise I've heard today. Klein replied with a smile. During this period, his feet kept moving as he spun Wahana and gently surrounded. Not far away, the hired quartet's melodious music echoed through the hall. He had the intention to have close ties with Wahan, not to improve his reputation, but because she was once a court lady. After Wahan corrected a minor mistake that Dwayne Dantes committed, she said, when inviting a lady to dance, it's not only a dance, you also need to converse. You can't be like those two dolls unless both of you are so immersed in the dance and music's rhythms that you do not wish to speak. Of course, that's also a form of communication of the heart. When conversing, you must be euphemistic because this is Loen, not Intis. She's talking shit about Intis. Dwayne is a Casanova. I don't know what that is, a Casanova. So don't be like Lintus. To put it simply, do not be direct and crude. You need to appear gentlemanly. Let me raise an example. If you wish to compliment a lady for her perfume, you can't directly tell her how nice it smells, nor ask what kind of perfume it is to praise her. You need to connect a more euphemistic meaning to it. What? To it and mention that? Yes, you can say something like, it feels like I'm out in the spring meadows. Of course, this needs to match the traits of the perfume. There's no there's what? You gotta act like this? I cannot do that. I can't even act like that. There's no literary feel. Shouldn't you say that the moon is beautiful, isn't it? Klein lampooned with a Japanese-styled euphemism and said with a self-deprecating smile, thank you for not telling me that the praises weren't gentlemanly enough. Wahan smiled deeply. Mr. Danitz, do you know what kind of gentleman is very welcoming by women at social events? Pray do tell. Klein honestly shook his head. Wahan said without changing in her smile, the second most popular type of man who make women think he's very intelligent. What about the first? Clyde asked cooperatively. Wahana glanced at him and said, the most popular type of men who make women think that are very intelligent. Upon saying that, she smiled and didn't say another word. Klein instantly understood that she was hiding her praise in between the lines. So this is the Loen-styled euphemism. It's not like Intis where they just aim straight for the lower half of the body. Huh? That's the written in papers and magazines. I've no way of confirming what the real Intis social events are like, and you don't want to know, bro. Anyway, both countries often sully each other. The Emperor era does match the description through. Klein nodded in enlightenment. The 2-hour etiquette less ended in a harmonious mood. Klein walked teacher Wahan hastened to the door with the butler Walter and Valette Richardson before giving her a tiny gift. It was Moonlight, a perfume from the Dream Company. It was mixed with gray amber, making it rather expensive. As for how much of it was, Klein wasn't sure, as housekeeper Tanja was responsible for buying it. The payment was through her only when the £1,000 was almost expended. When she comes to him with receipts, his list of him was, I can't read, was vet so as to recite the fresh funds. The reason why Klein knew the company and perfume was that his butler had informed him ahead of time it was to prevent him from appearing insincere if Mam Wahan were to ask. From this detail, he had a deep understanding of the use of a good butler. Watching satisfied Mam Wahan hasten leave, Klein held back the urge to rub his temples, so as he sighed inwardly, this is more tiring than a beyonder battle. I have to constantly watch my actions and deliberate over my words. I need some rest. At this point, the white-gloved Walter took a step forward and said, Sir, since you wish for your etiquette studies to progress faster, why not move to the remaining lessons forward? What lessons? Klein felt a little headache. History and international politics, philosophy, music, as well as general knowledge of the sports like golfing, racing, hunting. Walter answered meticulously. Philosophy? Klein asked in surprise. Walter kind of like, I ain't got time for this. What do you mean? I'm trying to steal a book, dude. It's one of the most common topics discussed in high society. You don't need to have a very deep research into it, but you need to know what others are discussing. You need to know that the origins of philosophy stem from Kongsoka, Maridi, and Patterson, and not Emperor Rizal. You need to know that man was born free, came from Lumie. When tycoons first enter high society, many of them often... So it's like, we need to learn their philosophers. When tycoons first enter high society, many of them often make mistakes in such aspects. They use attributing certain sentences and philosophical thoughts like to Emperor Rizal. Klein felt his head ache the more he heard. He forcibly smiled and said, I haven't gotten any matters to do recently apart from my afternoon naps and heading to the cathedral. You can arrange the lessons to be at any time. In a dark room, a letter floated up and opened by itself before shaking the piece of paper. In her tiny bonnet, Sharon's figure was outlined. She grasped the letter and seriously read through it. She wrote a reply and set up a ritual to summon Sherlock Moriarty's messenger. During this process, she didn't forget to prepare a gold coin. Soon, Sharon finished the incantation as she watched the candle flame burden to be tainted by the gloomy green color. Renette, with the 4 blonde red eyes, heads in hand, appeared out of the candlelight and appeared before Sharon. Sharon's eyes constricted as her doll-like face suddenly showed immense emotional fluctuations. She... The fuck? Teacher! She blurted out, teacher! Haven't you already... What? Renette's her teacher? Whoa, I'm sorry, the mic is... She's her teacher? I'm sorry, let me lower it just a smidge. I'm sorry. She blurted out, teacher. Haven't you... What a coincidence. Okay, let's keep reading. All right. Yes. It's a very dangerous word. Chapter 752 is called Warning. 160 Boakland Street in the sunny... What the... Are we not going to go back to that plot reveal? Are we just going to skip that? No, we better get back to that. 160 Boakland Street in the sunny study. The bookshelves were ordinarily arranged by a huge collection. At a glance, one appeared as though they had stepped into a private library. Klein sat on a high-backed chair as he read the newspapers. He discovered to be the Tuscan Times and the Backland Daily Tribune. There was an additional advertisement in a striking spot. It advertised selling the 10% of Backland Bike Company shares. Mr. Stanton is rather efficient. It's only been a few days, and he has completed the financial checks and valuations. Klein silently reflected on the matter when his spiritual perception was triggered. They have a buyer. They might have a buyer. All right, let's keep reading. Was triggered. He quickly activated his spirit vision and saw Renette Anker walk out of the void. She still held the 4 blonde, red-eyed heads in her hand, with one of them having a letter in its mouth. It's likely to reply from Miss Sharon. As Klein had the thoughts, he reached out to receive his nod of thank you. As he spoke, he subconsciously glanced at the door because standing outside was his valet, Richardson. After tearing open the envelope and folding the letter, Klein quickly scanned it, confirming that it was written by Sharon. She indicated that she had no intention of buying the biological poison bottle. She might only consider it after a period of time if it was still available. She's in a tight financial situation, or is she saving money to do something important? Maybe to buy her puppet potion? Klein casually thought and instinctively felt that it was the latter. This was because it was impossible for the demigod named Zatwen to keep staying in Backland. For now, Sharon and Merrick had escaped the pursuit of the rose school of thought, and with their beyond powers and unique traits about their sequences, it wasn't difficult for them to amass money in a relaxed environment. Furthermore, they seemed to be in charge of illegal arms dealing in Braveheart's bar, and they were the backers behind Ian. Just this alone would make them plenty of money. As he thought about it, Klein looked up and saw Miss Messenger's 8 red eyes looking 8. Oh wait, yeah, 4 times 2. Eyes looking him intently. He jumped in fright, imagining that she was urging him to pay the debt he owed her. He cleared his throat and said, "There's no need to reply. I'll be paying the first installment within the week." Renette's 4 heads spoke one after another. There's no rush. There's no interest. Ooh, free interest, 0%. Miss Messenger is still quite nice after all. As Klein said, Renette Tinker vanished from her spot, returning back into the depths of the spirit world. After burning the letter and resting for half an hour, he walked to the door to inform Richardson to prepare the carriage. He planned on heading to the cathedral before his philosophy class in the afternoon. The journey there was smooth and sailing, and Klein arrived at the square outside the St. Samuel Cathedral after a few sips of tea. After gaining the serenity from taking in the sights of the pigeons, he strode towards the cathedral's main door, entered the prayer hall, and randomly found a few to sit at. Like before, Richardson sat diagonally behind him with his master's hat and cane. As he emptied his mind during his prayers, Klein's spiritual perception was triggered once again. He instinctively opened his eyes and looked left. He saw the black-haired, green-eyed Leonard Mitchell. Oh, it's him again. The Nighthawk wasn't wearing a trench coat. He looked casual with his white hair tucked out while matching them with straight trousers and a black vest. Hold up. I almost slipped up my reading. Hold up. I gotta stay locked in. I realize you guys can't hear the music. It is way too low on your end. It's like barely being picked up. This Nighthawk wasn't wearing a trench coat. He looked casual with his white shirt tucked out while matching them with straight trousers and a black vest. Seeing the middle-aged man with gray streaks at his sideburns look at him, he smiled with a nod, retracted his gaze, and closed his eyes in a bit to pretend to pray. He wasn't worried that the man would discover that he wasn't watching him because he had only done a cursory sweep without any additional actions. Many believers presented had similar actions as well. It was inevitable for a good-looking, dignified gentleman to attract someone's attention when he entered. Leonard Mitchell was someone who often attracted such attention. So he knew this very well. At this moment, the slightly aged voice sounded in his mind. It's him. Ooh, it's him. Okay, all right, let's keep reading, dude. It's him. He didn't make my hard work of running over to the cathedral yesterday and today be in vain. Leonard thought smugly as his expression remained stoic. Klein was also pretending to pray as puzzlement surfaced in his thinking mind. When did this fellow Leonard become so pious? Although he definitely more pious than me, he's not the kind of person who would come to the cathedral every day. He would come once or twice a week at best. He senses him. What's his goal for coming? He seems to be observing me just now. Upon having this thought, Klein suddenly realized something. The grandpa in him is an angel of the Zoroast family, which makes him an angel of the Marauder pathway. Blasphemer Amon is a king of angels of the... Dude, Klein is so smart. He has such a good memory. The grandpa in him is the angel of the Zoroast family, which makes him an angel of the Marauder pathway. Blasphemer Amon is the king of angels of this pathway. He could discover the gray fog and even try to infiltrate it. So he's like, the old man could probably sense it too. So it's very possible that Grandpa Leonard can also sense the gray fog or the traces of its powers on me. Upon making this judgment, Klein immediately felt his heart in his throat. He felt like dangerous straps were surrounding him. He maintained his praying posture and the eyes under his eyelids remained motionless. His entire person was calm and reserved, completely identical to the cathedral's atmosphere. After an unknown period of time, he slowly got up and walked to the altar. He came before the donation box and threw in a total of 50 pounds in cash. Following that, he did the same as before, smiling at the bishop and the priest on duty while nodding. He received a rather friendly response. The moment he walked out of the St. Samuel Cathedral, Klein received his hat from Richardson, and he fed the pigeons on the square for about 10 minutes. And behind him, the believers who had finished his prayers walked out, including Leonard Mitchell. Without looking at the entrance, Klein leisurely clapped his hands, took out his gold coin inlet cane, and walked to the nearby four-wheeled carriage. Leonard was similarly feeding the pigeons on the square. Now he's doing the same? I almost choked on my saliva. Leonard was similarly filling the pigeons on the square, but he didn't have any intentions of falling when he saw his target leave the carriage. Since the person had an ancient aura that the parasite in him placed such importance on him, he obviously didn't dare to be careless. He didn't act directly as it was extremely dangerous. He planned on making superficial investigations to gather the required intelligence. I'll see what old man has to say when the time comes. Besides, it's not like there's no direction for investigations at the moment. There can't be that many of the particular type of the high-end carriage in Backland, no matter if it's his or if it's his rented. It's easy to determine the source, then I'll know the identity and background of the gentleman. Leonard glanced at the pigeons as he thought leisurely. He was an experienced nighthawk, and he was even an elite red glove among the nighthawks. At this moment, a pigeon spread its wings and flew over. In its beak that appeared to be a paper slip, Leonard frowned as he reached out of his left palm and saw the pigeons fly down before dropping the slips. Then it flapped its wings and flew out. Raising the paper slip, Leonard warily unfolded. Oh my god, I'm reading wrong. Leonard warily unfolded it while feeling puzzled. He saw two lines of the text on it. Zoroast, parasite. This Leonard's pupils suddenly constricted as he felt all his hair stand up. His emotions nearly exploded at the very instant. This gentleman had seen through my secret. As expected, someone with an ancient aura. Oh, now the music is way too loud. Okay, hold up. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's crazy how, like, music from this series just goes up and down. As expected, someone with an ancient aura. He might be one of the undying monsters that remained from the fourth epoch. He's warning me that I shouldn't involve myself in matters or even come close to him. At that moment, Leonard felt that every action of the middle-aged man with white sideburns and blue eyes had done had left him shocked. When he recalled him, he was someone not to be looking at directly or approached. He immediately lost all his thoughts of investigating this man. As he watched the pigeon's line, he said with a surprised voice, "Old man, he might be an old friend of yours. If you wish to investigate, then it's best that you will wait till your strength recovers." Old friend, the slightly aged voice repeated the two words as though he found it suspect but couldn't be certain. Leonard quickly converged his emotions and chuckled. No longer need to GLA? Aura leveling? Ancient. Guys, come on. Ancient aura leveling. Did I scroll down too much? Leonard glanced at the pigeons as a topic. Wait. Hold up. Old friend. Okay, I thought I scrolled down too much. So you're someone from the Ross family. At this moment, about 100 meters away at the intersection of Phillips Street and the other streets, the black-haired Dwayne Dantes, who with the streaks of a gray-haired, leaned onto the wall as he slowly closed his eyes, hiding his wrinkles and facial features in the shadows of the carriage. To the side of his valet Richardson, a middle-aged man wearing a dark red coat and old triangular hat appeared. Bowing to his master before disappearing, no one saw the illusionary figure. The carriage slowly turned as the flock of pigeons flew up from the sky. What? To the side of his valet Richardson, a middle-aged man wearing a dark red coat and old triangular hat appeared. Bowing to his master before disappearing, no one saw the illusionary figure. Good delay. We have low latency on right now. The carriage slowly turned as the flock of pigeons flew up from before. After returning home and entering the room with a huge balcony, the silent client finally heaved a sigh of relief. If Leonard didn't accept the warning because of the grandpa's bewitchment, he planned on writing another slip with the contents. I know where Blasphemer Amon is. In between the lines, it means I'll tell Blasphemer Amon that there's a Zeros family angel here if you follow my plans. I'm sorry, so we are getting Amon this volume. This wouldn't make the grandpa believe that Dwayne Dantes was so weak that he had to rely on others to fend him off. It was more of a friendly warning that wouldn't number beyond 3 times, a form of respect towards an angel. If 2 warnings weren't enough to rein him in, there was no choice other than to inform Blasphemer Amon. Yes, there's a very high chance that this would scare him. There must be other ploys or difficulties for this grandpa to choose to parasite in such a shallow manner. He likely doesn't wish for me to flip through the table. This matter is all thanks to Rhodes. If he hadn't informed me ahead of time that Leonard had a marauder angel, I definitely wouldn't have noticed that I've been targeted, much less have a suitable excuse and method to warn them. Klein thought calmly and didn't show any anxiety or flustered states from before. As he relaxed, there was a knock on the door. His valet Richardson said, "Sir, the butler wishes to seek an audience with you. Please invite him in." Klein left the balcony and returned to the half-open room. The white-gloved Walter entered and said, "Sir, your philosopher teacher, Mr. Hamid, is here." Philosopher classes. Klein rubbed his aching temples. He had previously heard from Walter that Mr. Hamid was a believer of the Lord of Storms. It was the same for his famous school, Limie, as well as many of the philosophers of the Loen Kingdom shared the same faith. This made him rather surprised because to him, believers in Storm were irresistible bros. I gotta drown my veggies in ketchup because they're freaking disgusting. It'd be one of those days, Cammy. It'd be one of those days. From the looks of it, I have to change my stereotypes and subjective impressions. The prerequisite to being a philosopher is to not have a wife or to not have a cordial relationship with their families. As Klein lampooned, he straightened his clothes and walked to the door. He said to Butler Walter, "All right, I'll head over there now." Next chapter. Chapter 753 is called Bishop Visits. After the philosophy class, Klein had a feeling as though he hadn't slept in 3 days. His mind was filled with names and concepts like skepticism, metaphysics, a priori, and a posteriori, nominalism, Roselled socialism, existentialism, and positivism. If it wasn't because of the original Klein had studied history, which included some master philosophy, he doubted that he had the ability to last through the lesson. This wasn't his college lessons on Earth. They were one-to-one, making it impossible for him to sleep, daydream, or read novels on his cell phone when he didn't understand the content. Actually, Mr. Hamid was quite different from what I had imagined. He was a humorous, candid, and extroverted. His lesson wasn't dull, making him unlike a philosophy teacher. He also doesn't possess the stereotypes of Lords of Storm's believers. Klein rubbed his temples, turned to leave, walked to the staircase. He returned to the third floor as his valet, Richardson, followed him in silence. During this process, he discovered that his servants were busy with their own duties. None of them were lazing about, and they were about only one stop when their employer walked past. They would bow and greet him, clearly indicating how well-mannered they were. Tenja is very capable when it comes to the arrangement and management of the household that matters, after all. Klein walked through the corridor on the third floor and walked to the half-open room. Before he walked in, Klein saw butler Walter hanging 2 double-barreled hunting rifles on the wall, making the interior have a raw and bold feeling. This was a decoration every tycoon's home had. It's very easy to get approved for a hunting license. A double-barreled hunting rifle is potent enough to allow the servants to fend off any criminals who wish to burgle or kidnap me. After hanging the rifle up, Walter took 2 steps back and observed the hunting rifle. He then took out a golden pocket watch from his inner pocket. He opened the pocket watch and looked at the lid's interior. His stamped, old-fashioned face softened significantly. Klein coughed gently to inform his butler before pushing open the ajar door. As he walked in, Walter closed the pocket watch and returned to his spot and bowed. Sir, we applied for 6 hunting licenses and bought 6 double-barrel hunting rifles and the corresponding canister cartridge. Klein had Death Nail hiding under his... Oh, the gun! Klein had Death Nail hiding under his armpit, so he didn't mind it too much. All he did was nod as a form of acknowledgement. He then revealed a warm smile and asked, as though having a casual chat, "Back when I saw the information from the Family Servant Assistants Association, I noticed that you already had a wife and children. A butler was the assistant to the employer. He was confident that he knew many matters. Therefore, establishing rapport with the butler was something every employer had to do. Klein didn't wish to be an exception. Furthermore, he remembered Rhodes mentioning that butler Walter could result in additional developments. Walter answered in all seriousness, "Yes, back when I was a servant of the Viscount Conrad's Manors, I had to have a constant contract with a lady due to work. We began having feelings for each other, and under the goddess's watch, we walked down the aisle of marriage and ended up having a daughter. She's currently studying at a grammar school and wishes to pass the Backland University's entrance exam. However, that's something to consider only 2 years later." Upon mentioning his wife and daughter, this unsmiling butler's tone unknowingly turned mellow. At present, all the churches were emphasizing the importance of family. It was to stem the stress and mental problems that arose due to the tides of technological problems. The only difference was that the different churches emphasized different matters for every night. Wait, what? Oh, no, forever night. I thought I meant every night. No, forever night. Men and women were equal as they helped one another in family for storms. Men were to work outside while women were to handle the family, to be the former supportive angel. For STEAM, it was more about learning and to have technology and do more of the work. All of them had their strengths and they complemented each other. Klein felt wistful hearing as he said, "Madame Tangia seems to be single." Yes, Walter's expression turned solemn again. In modern society, male and female servants still do not enjoy equal treatment. It's not refreshing to the salary as a housekeeper. It's the same level as a butler or butler assistant earning 25 to 50 pounds a year. Instead, I'm talking about a deeper idea and belief. The church is trying to change it, but there's plenty of resonance. After all, the goddess isn't the only belief in what? Loen? He paused and added, "Male servants can get married, but if a female servant were to have a family, it implies that the loss of her job or becoming the lowest laundress who's only a part-time employee that doesn't need to live at the employer's residence. All of these will change only when one reaches the rank of a housekeeper, but this isn't something a young and inexperienced lady is qualified for." Klein didn't continue the topic as he nodded gently. He then walked towards a reclining chair. At this moment, his gaze swept by the piles of newspapers on the coffee table. His mind stirred as he paused, turned to the side, and said in Butler, "I saw an advertisement in the papers regarding the sale of Backland Bike Company shares. Find a professional lawyer and accountant to inquire about the figure out the exact situation. Huh? I'm rather interested in the industry. It's the price is right. I'll consider buying it. For a second, Klein thought of a problem. As a tycoon who had brought huge sums of money to Backlund to seek out better opportunities, it was impossible that he didn't pay attention to the sale of Backlund Bike Company shares. Since he didn't know the prospects of this industry, he needed to hire people to gain a better understanding of it. Otherwise, it wouldn't find the persona. Of course, I can also raise the price as a result, allowing me to sell the 10% shares at a higher price. Yes, I have to remember that just raise the price a little and to not be too greedy. If I were to keep raising the price as it ends up back in my hands, I'll be crying. It will throw all my liquidity into it, and I wouldn't be able to maintain my daily expenses. As Klein fantasized, he warned himself, "Yes, sir." Walter didn't ask further as he directly agreed. At 4:35 p.m., Richardson knocked on the door and entered. He said to Dwayne Dantes, who was reading leisurely, "Sir, Mr. Maury Machette and his wife, Ma'am Rianne, as well as St. Samuel Cathedral's bishop-elect, is here to pay you a visit. Maury Much, the House of the Commons, members of Parliament. Also, why would St. Samuel Cathedral's bishops be here as well?" Klein thought and asked with a smile, "Is there such a protocol?" He had only attended 2 etiquette lessons and knew that at this stage, visits wouldn't be that direct. People first send their butlers or servants, just that we found that out earlier on. They will send their butlers and servants first, or their maids. Find that their butlers or servants to hand over an invitation or schedule a visit. Richardson habitually lowered his head and said yes. It's because Mr. Butler informed the neighbors that you would be home in the afternoon for the next week when we were delivering your name cards and gifts. Under such a situation, neighbors who received your name and card have heard about you and will observe the corresponding details. Not only can they send their servants to invite you over, but they can also pass by on excuse of being out on the afternoon stroll from 4 to 5 to make semi-formal visits. Oh, the ladies will wear strolling attire, otherwise it wouldn't be decent enough. And you can also invite them to have afternoon tea with you. Klein walked to the door and allowed Richardson to retrieve his coat to help him wear it. He then asked them, why would Bishop Electra be here as well? Just because he really cared about most. The first questions was to lead up to it. Richardson answered as though he had prepared to answer. Bishop Electract was a guest of the Member of Parliament, Matched's house in the afternoon. They must have mentioned you while having a chat and decided to pay a visit by strolling over. His hands weren't affected by his taking. He skillfully helped Dwayne Dantes adjust his attire. Klein tearfully acknowledged, and after Richardson went forward to open the door, he walked outside. Soon he saw the 3 visitors in a small living room on the second floor. Maury Machette was a classic Loenese gentleman. He was in his 40s and he had black hair and brown eyes. He had a deep outline and a reclining hairline. His face was a little thin and long. He was formerly in the military and had entered the politics after being discharged. He started his career in Backlund until he became a member of Parliament of the Kingdom's House of Commons. He was a believer of the Evident Goddess and a member of the New Party. He was in support of improving environment. His wife Rihanna was from a family of lawyers. She provided plenty of funding from her husband's political ambitions, and she was also a believer of the Evernight Goddess. Electra? Do you guys remember the movie Electra? Reclining hairline? It's done all over again. Dunn and Benson. Rihanna? I used to listen to the song Disturbia. I'll admit it. I was a fan of that song. That was a banger-ass song. Electra wore a black double-breasted clergyman's robe. He looked to be 40, and he had deep blue eyes and a thin face. He wasn't good-looking, but for some baffling reason, he was pleasing to his eyes. Klein had once met his bishop when he was donating money into the donation box. Upon seeing Dwayne Dantes appear, Maury Mach took 2 steps forward and chuckled. "I've been hearing for the past few days that a pious believer in the goddess had moved into Unit 160. I've been waiting to visit. What happened to be taking a stroll today, and we took the liberty to visit. Please pardon us for our fox pas." Klein smiled and tapped his chest 4 times in a clockwise fashion. "At such times, the only thing we need to do is praise the lady." Praise the lady. Electra and Rianne nodded and drew a crimson moon on their chests. After exchanging pleasantries, Klein invited his 3 guests to take a seat. A maid hurriedly delivered some tea and the coffee. Housekeeper Tanja had already asked each of them what they wanted prior. "Mr. Dantes, I heard you're a merchant from Desi. I wonder what business you were previously engaged in." Maury Machette asked casually before joking, "Your last name just makes me think of many things." He was referring to the protagonist's name of a particular best-selling novel written by Emperor Rizal. Klein smiled and humorously asked in return, "What kind of businesses does digging up treasures count as?" This was also related to the content of said bestseller novel. Without waiting for the member of Parliament to answer him, he said that He said the answer he had long fabricated. I once had my own mind, but as you know, it will one day be mined out. Mining cities will also end up waning as a result. He was hinting that he was born in one of the resource-rich cities in Desi County. Oh, but he doesn't say it. Fox paws, French for wrong step. Things you're not supposed to do. Thank you, Kemi. I would not know what that word was otherwise. Thank you, dude. Rich cities in Desi County. I almost got lost, but we didn't. Their gangs were rampant, and there were many secret tycoons. If ordinary people were to attend to investigate Dwayne Dante's situation, it would take them at least half a year. Bishop Electra nodded in thought and asked, So you chose to come to Backland to seek out new opportunities. May I know who proselytized you into the church? Don't even worry about it, dude. Chapter 754 is called Invitation. Klein had already walked through the Bishop Electra's last question before she said with a sigh, It was my father. He was a true wise elder. Unfortunately, he passed away many years ago during an accident. When he said that, he infused the original Klein's emotions of losing his parents, him being in an alternative world with no home to return to, as well as the scars that resulted from his time in Tingan City. He sounded calm and wore a slightly smile, but there was a sorrow that lasted forever that remained hidden deep inside. I'm sorry for your loss. He must have entered the holy residence of the goddess, sleeping peacefully under her watch. Bishop Electra answered sincerely as she formed the signs of the crimson moon on his chest. Without waiting for Dwayne Dante's response, he looked at him and invited him. There would be a moon mass the day after tomorrow for the deceased. It will help him sleep in the goddess's nation and receive eternal peace. I wonder if you're interested in participating. The Church of the Aeronite Goddess didn't have many festivals. Just festivals? And the most important one was Winter Gifts Day. The second most important was the mass held during the full moon, as well also known as the Moon Mass. The rest were just normal masses and prayers on weekends. However, different dioceses and different cathedrals had their own Patreon saints and angels, which would have a corresponding special festival for them. I would love to. Klein stood up and bowed, saying it from the bottom of his heart. This gave him the perfect excuse to interact with the bishops and priests of the St. Samba Cathedral, or even the diocese bishop. He had a firm foundation for entering particular regions in the cathedral. Meanwhile, he came to realize why the Evernight pathway was interchangeable with Death pathway. Because they mourned the death. Both wielded the authorities of serenity, eternal sleep, and darkness. Oh. It represented the end and a destination. That's a little deep. Following that, you know what? Hold up. Not to get personal, I spoke to a pretty humbled man today. And he started like talking along these lines, man. Like when he reaches his eternal sleep, I'm like, damn, man, this conversation just got deep. That shit had me thinking today, man. I was in deep thought today, and then he was thinking about like when his dogs are gonna go, and I'm like, damn, man, like don't make me think that about my dog. I was like, I love my Ellie. I don't want to think about that right now. Damn, man. What look at the coincidence. I love when you read a series and like you can see the correlations with like your real life scenarios. Damn, man. Following that, what a coincidence. What a coincidence. I just had that conversation today, and look what we're reading. Following that, Mari Mach didn't continue the topic regarding Dwayne Dante's identity and background. It appeared as though he had only been asking in passing. Easy metaphor. I definitely talked to a philosopher today. Like that convo got a little deep. I'm like, damn, man, I can't talk about this. This shit gets me too emotional. He and his wife Rianne began idly talking about their vacation experiences in Desi Bay last year, having filled the gaps on this by staying there for 2 days. Klein replied without a native tone as he shared his thoughts on the Desi specific specialty roasted fish. During this process, he also pretended to unintentionally mention his hunting activities while he was doing business in the West Balam and how he was extremely familiar with the primitive forest over there. This was to build up necessary foundations for the second layer to Dwayne Dante's identify. Furthermore, West Balam was different from the East Balam. The colonial factions from Loen and Intis were on par, allowing for frequent conflicts. Even the actively controlled regions would experience changes from time to time. To investigate the activity trajectories of a merchant adventurer wasn't easy at all. This was even more so as the case for Dwayne Dantes was likely using a fake name. As for the hunting experiences in West Balam primitive forests, Klein didn't randomly fabricate stories, nor did he plagiarize articles from the magazines or newspapers. He used the Fog Sea's strongest hunter Anderson had previously mentioned regarding his glorious deeds as a blueprint. He drew out the details and abandoned the main storyline. What he fabricated was partly true and fake as well. Upon hearing the thick anacondas, why couldn't I read that? anacondas. Upon hearing the thick anacondas, man-eating fishes, and flowers which could capture their own prey in the forest, Rianne would let out gasps from time to time, looking afraid but also eager to know more. As for the members of parliaments and bishops, they were equally interested. They often had to force themselves to interrupt Dwayne Dance's descriptions to ask about their details. You really are an excellent hunter. Back when I was serving in East Balham, I never had the chance to enter the forest. I never expected it to be this strangers. After this extremely dignified middle-aged gentleman finished the tales, Mari Machat picked up a tiny piece of velvet cake and prayed sincerely, I wish to invite you to go hunting if there's a chance in the future. If they conversed, a maid had delivered the afternoon teas, a male servant served for them to the side. Upon hearing the members of parliament Machat's semi-serious invitation, Klein remained with a smile. I'm already looking forward to it. After chatting a little more and discussing Backlund's pollution control, the three guests suggested that they take their leave, and they had only acquainted themselves and they were considered familiar with each other. Klein didn't retain them. He then set them to the door with his valet Richardson. As he watched the bishop member of the parliament and his wife leave, Klein smiled slowly, disappeared until there was nothing left. He was rather pleased with the progress he had made. I went away. Bishop Electra, oh, it's at the tip of my nose, sneezing. Bishop Electra was directly related to the Church of the Evernight Goddess, which was the main goal for him to return to Backlund. Mari Macht was a discharged soldier and a member of the parliament at present. Without a doubt, he belonged to a certain military officers club, and he would be beneficial to his continued investigation to the great smog of Backlund. Next up, I should slowly deepen our relationships. Klein returned to his small living room and saw that the maid had taken away the remaining pastries and tea. He originally planned on having a little more, regardless of the other types of food. The pastries and desserts in Loen, especially Backlund, were outstanding. As for the cook, which Dwayne Donson had hired, he was skilled in that. Ma'am Rian was filled with praise about it. Klein also agreed from the bottom of his heart. Retracting his gaze, Klein didn't say a word as he steadily walked to the staircase that led to the third floor. Before dinner, butler Walter finally returned to the house and briefed him on the situation regarding 10% of Backlund Bike Company shares. Sir, we are lucky enough. Someone had hired a professional lawyer and accountant to investigate the situation of the Backlund Bike Company, and they had offered a price to the seller before advertisings were published, but in subsequent negotiations, the price exceeded the buyer's exception. He had no choice but to give up. This way, we don't have to wait for the investigation's report. We can directly hire the original team. Klein nodded and asked without hiding anything, what's the current bid? The buyers that gave up had offered £6,000 with a bottom line price of £7,000. The sellers didn't divulge the situation about the other buyers. However, the feedback from the various channels, it's at least £8,000. £8,000, not too bad. Should I raise it a little more? If I were to raise the price a little and the other parties just gives up, wouldn't it be awkward? Klein nodded slightly and said, give me the corresponding report. I would consider it. After flipping through the report and having dinner to accentuate his extravagant but brilliant image, as someone who did solid work, Klein turned his head to Richardson and said, prepare the two-wheel carriage. I'll be making a trip outside. He originally imagined that Richardson would ask him in surprise. A two-wheeled carriage didn't seem befitting enough, but to his surprise, his valet answered politely after flashing a curious look, all right, sir. Submissive and never asking why. That's also considered an advantage. Klein sighed inwardly as he waited for Richardson to return to help him wear his coat. After getting onto the two-wheeled carriage, he directly instructed, let's circle around Backlund Bridge area in Eastborough. Richardson still didn't ask about his master's motives and just got to the coachman to steer the horses carefully. As the carriage passed through Sherwood Borough, it arrived in Backlund Bridge area under the illumination of the street lamps. Klein didn't give a destination. He only had the coachman to meander through the nearby streets. He leaned against the carriage wall, looked out the streets. He saw pedestrians in no clothes walking along, the tired faces as though they were in a rush to return home from dinner after a hard day's work. Occasionally, they would be ringing they all have bikes. Occasionally, they would be ringing off a bike passing by. They were fast as they shot into the distance. In comparison, the rider's expression appeared more lively than the pedestrians. They seemed to beam with an indescribable sense of pride. Look at that. I see what you guys did there. It's an obvious difference in class, although it's a difference between a technical worker and an ordinary worker. With the difference in weekly salaries, one of the £2 to those with £1 a week, Klein slowly exhaled as he subconsciously looked up at the sky. At that moment, darkness had already completely covered the Backlund skies, but the smog wasn't too serious. One could see through them and see the twinkling stars. After the great smog, the management of the environment is improving by the day. Oh, well, that's good. However, the situation with the lower class workers in the East Borough hasn't significantly improved. Although their salaries might be higher and their working hours had improved, due to large numbers of people surging in, prices have risen across the board, reducing the effects of the salary hike. The improvement in working hours has just gone from 15 to 16 hours to 11 and 12 hours. Oh, they cut them. They're just fixing the problems with the greatest problem. As for the other problems that didn't rear their ugly heads, they're neglected. Yes, the kingdom is still undergoing reforms. Many things haven't been straightened out. Clank watched as his thoughts drifted until the carriage left Sherwood Borough. On the future admiral of the Sarsket Leah stood behind the window and the captain's cabin, watching Frank Lee push wooden barrels into the shadows. He was putting unknown things into it before closing the lid. He's recently been researching the growth of plants in dark environments. Why did he suddenly become normal? Catleya frowned with his suspicions, often worrying that Frank Lee would create some huge invention. We'll see what he gets. I get Nina to ask later. Just as she had this thought, her spiritual perception was triggered. She turned her head to see a letter on her desk as a faint smile curled on her lips without her realizing it. Catleya walked over, tore open this envelope, and unfolded the letter. She quickly read through it. There are two obelisks that do not belong to the Church of Storm swimming north from the Sonia Island towards the Abyss Maelstrom. Find the direct descendant of the Abraham family. You did well. Abyss Maelstrom was the name of a dangerous area at sea and not the Abyss. But this isn't the entrance to the Abyss, but this place is called the Abyss Maelstrom. Abraham family. Catleya thought for a moment, and without any clue, she planned on asking at the next Tarot gathering. The next morning, after divining again if he should raise the price again, Klein said to Butler Walter, hire the team and continue negotiations. My bottom line is £9,000. All right, sir. Walter then immediately said with an apologetic look, something happened at home and I wish to have half a day off. No problem. Do you need any help? Klein asked gently. Thank you for asking. I can handle it. It's not too urgent. I will first handle the matters regarding the share negotiations first, Walter said sincerely. Klein didn't ask further as he nodded and permitted him to take time off. After his butler left the room, Klein turned to look at Richardson and asked, did Walter meet anyone earlier this morning? Mr. Butler received the letter. Richardson replied without hiding anything. What happened to the butler? 10 chapters in 2 hours. Dude, we're getting locked into it. Chapter 755. It's over, guys. Chapter 755 is called Switchboard Receptionist. He received the letter. Didn't he say that something had happened at home? Walter's family lives in Backland, so if there really is anything wrong, they can directly come over via public carriage or a rental carriage. Wouldn't that be faster than sending a messenger by mail? With his salary and the land in the countryside, he can definitely afford it. Klein nodded without a word, as though he had just asked in passing. He slowly returned to the reclining chair, sat down, and began to seriously read the newspapers. Upon seeing this, Richardson didn't say a thing as he silently retreated out of the room and quietly closed the wooden door. After hearing the light click, Klein cast his gaze away from the papers and towards the door. He thought, I've discovered another advantage of Richardson. He enjoys observing his surroundings and he's able to notice information of value. Back when Bishop Electra was a guest at a member of Parliament Mari Mach's place, he was the first one to notice it from the balcony. However, this is different from a spectator. The focus is more of the event rather than details. Walter's matter seems to be a little abnormal. Could it be that the additional development of the roads mentioned? Regardless, I first divine the matter. I don't want danger to come to me without me realizing it. With this in mind, Klein immediately entered the bathroom, took 4 steps counterclockwise, and arrived at the gray fog. Every time he appeared as the fool, his inner shell beneath the gray fog would wear Klein Moriarty's appearance. It wouldn't overlap with Sherlock Moriarty, German Sparrows, or Dwayne Dantes. Due to the lack of necessary information, he could only divine about the danger that targeted himself. Therefore, he didn't use dream divination. He removed the spirit pendulum around his waist and wrote the corresponding divination statement. Walter's abnormality would bring me danger. Holding the spirit pendulum in his left hand, Klein closed his eyes and entered a cognition as he muttered the sentence he had just read. After repeating it 7 times, he opened his eyes and saw the top hat spinning counterclockwise at a rather ordinary speed and amplitude. This also meant that Walter's abnormality wouldn't bring him any danger, but this can only mean that I might encounter no danger through this problem. In addition, there's also another possibility, the danger depending on whether I make the appropriate choice. If I were to rashly get myself involved, something this isn't dangerous might become dangerous. Klein interpreted the matter with his rich experience. Just as he put this matter on hold, he suddenly saw the crimson star that represented the hermit coruscate as it burgeoned and shrank. Does this mean that the payment for skills of luck is here? What? There's a Kokonim official artwork for you to check out on the artwork. Oh yeah, we'll look at it right now. Kokonim? Oh yeah. Well, yeah. There's like, it should be gone now. This also meant that Walter's abnormality wouldn't bring him any danger, but this can only mean that I might not encounter any danger troublesome through this problem. In addition, there's also another possibility. The danger depends on whether I make the appropriate choice. If I were to rashly get myself involved, something that isn't dangerous might become dangerous. Client interpreted the matter with his rich experience. Just as he put this matter on hold, he suddenly saw the crimson star that represented the hermit coruscate as it burgeoned and shrank. Does this mean that the payment of the scales of luck is here? Klein was delighted as he immediately admitted his spirituality. He was left disappointed because Catleya was only requesting Mr. Fool to pass on the message to the hangman. She didn't mention when she was close to the deal with the world. There are obelisks for the Abyss, Maelstrom, north of the Sonia Sea. Mr. Hangman is pretty lucky. At least he is like me, needing to enter the ruins of the battlefield of gods. Of course, obelisks can be obelisks. I think I'm reading it wrong. I think I'm reading it right. Never mind. Obelisks can be dangerous as well. It's not that easy to use one for a ritual. Mr. Hangman might even need to seek God's help. Madam Herman's request is actually to help me find the direct descendants of the Abraham family. This means that Queen Mystic is rather aware of Mr. Door's origins. The Emperor has mentioned it to her. Klein began making connections from Catleya's words as he threw the corresponding image to the crimson star representing the hangman. At this moment, Olger Wilson had just finished his reports and had passed examination, allowing him to return to the Blue Avenger. When he saw the endless gray fog and heard the hermit's words, he walked to the captain's cabin with a deadpan expression, keeping his pace normal. Upon entering the room and closing the door, he came in front of an alcohol cabinet, took out a bottle of Lanty Proof and most beloved drink of Paris and poured half a cup. Olger immediately held the cup to his mouth and downed it like it was water. During this process, he kept his eyes half closed as though he was completely immersed in his own world. After drinking half a cup of Lanty Proof, Olger put down the cup, wiping his mouth, and chuckled. Abraham's family, direct descendant. This might be very difficult for others with almost zero clues, but I can ask Miss Magician. Her teacher is one. Admiral Star still isn't aware of it yet. He quickly reined in his emotions and paced about, finally giving up on his idea and responded frankly to Catleya's request. Admiral of Stars wouldn't only ask for my help. At the Tarot gathering next week, she might announce this mission to everyone, and the others know that Miss Magician teacher is a member of the Abraham family. There's no point in lying about the matters that can easily be exposed. I shouldn't jeopardize the possible transactions in the future just for some petty gains. At times, honesty is the best policy. Olger stopped walking as he reverently bowed. Look at him, dude. Honesty is the best policy. Olger stopped walking as he reverently bowed his head and recited Mr. Fool's honorific name. Please inform Madame Herma that she can directly ask Miss Magician for clues regarding the direct descendants of the Abraham family. After settling the request of Admiral Stars, Olger took the initiative to mention his encounter during the night of the blood moon, and he inquired to Mr. Fool about whether the item resonated with the Queen songsters beyond her characteristics was the Book of Calamity, and if the female holding the golden cup in the Cornell Palace was Kohanim. Something like that had happened. Queen of Calamity might really not be completely dead. It's likely that she had split her beyond her characteristics. Queen of Calamity might really not be completely dead. It's likely that she had split her beyond her characteristics, splitting them into the Book of Calamity and the one in the Undersea Ruin. Yes? What? There might even be a third or fourth portion. You can split your characteristic into like up to 4 portions. But I have no idea where they are. Klein confirmed without any hesitation that the elf was Queen of Calamity Kohanim. This wasn't based on the intuition but logical interference. He once obtained the golden cup of the elf Queen Kohanim loved and a similar vessel that had appeared in the dream. Elven songster Syatis knew, and Boss Music explained, daily tribunals, and she had quite a strong relationship with the angel, which strongly implied that she was an elf that had tended the Kohanim. It was completely understandable that the beyond her characteristics had left behind resonating with the Book of Calamity on the night of the blood moon. With that in mind, Klein suddenly recalled the matter. He had given Kohanim Beloved a golden cup to Vice Admiral Icebreaker Edwina for her to bury in Syatis' tomb. If Queen of Calamity really isn't completely dead, will the golden cup cause any form of mutation to the corpses of any elves close to her? Klein did a count of the time, and he discovered that he couldn't be certain the golden dream had reached Sonia Island. After some thought, he calmly replied to the hangman, "That's right." I know, I did not understand that. That's why I'll reread it right now, because I actually didn't understand that. Honorable Mr. Fool, please tell the Nits to pass on the message to Vice Admiral Icebreaker Edwina Edwards about the existence of any abnormalities between Elven songster Syatis' corpse and the Golden Cup. Phew, after doing all that, Klein exhaled and threw the corresponding image to the specially labeled point of the light beside him. He then returned to the real world and left the bathroom. Coming before his changing mirror, he looked at his gray sideburns and blue eyes as he curled up the corners of his lips. He knew that he had returned from being Mr. Fool to mysterious merchant Dwayne Dantes. Hey, what's up, guys? What's up, Wallflower? Bayham inside the primitive forest, the Nids, who was having a feast in a particular base of resistance, suddenly trembled as they nearly choked on the liquid in his mouth. Although this wasn't the first time he was receiving an answer from the mighty fool, he still felt apprehensive and afraid. After he identified the figure and heard his words, he heard a sigh of relief, and he knew that Gurman Sparrow was getting him to do something. Ask Capum, that's simple. The Golden Dream will be picking me up in a few days, huh? Gurman Sparrow isn't crazy, and he's even very sincere and reverent before the mighty fool. The Nids quickly relaxed as he leisurely thought. Meanwhile, in the future, Kalia, who was receiving a response that surprised muttered in silence, directly asked Miss Magician. Yeah, she seems to be a beyonder of the apprentice pathway. She's actually related to the Abraham family. As I expected, she's not so simple. Katlia considered a moment and decided if she ought to give the hangman a new mission because she wasn't too sure if Miss Messenger was willing to divulge clues of the Abraham family. Walter returned to 160 Buckland Street in the afternoon with a normal expression like before. He had apparently resolved everything easily. Klein didn't ask. He felt that their relationship hadn't reached a point in which his butler would be totally frank with him. Furthermore, the problem hadn't fully blown up before him in a way that couldn't be hidden. Time quickly passed as he had his lessons. The next evening, with the arrival of the full moon, Klein brought along Richardson and rode his high-end carriage to St. Samuel Cathedral for the moon mass. He wasn't worried about the donations that would happen because Miss Justice had paid £1,000. He now had £2,186, so it wasn't too difficult for him to donate a few £100. Damn, he's donating money left and right. It's only not too difficult, Klein sighed inwardly as he looked at the bell tower outside, left the carriage, walked across the square, and stepped into St. Samuel Cathedral. I think we were pretty locked in. All right, overall thoughts. This was a damn good chapter, good stream. I feel like we locked in. I think this is the most we've been able to read in 2 hours. But OSOT art for the Dragon Raga Dunqua? Oh, wait, hold up. That's not Lord of Mysteries. Is this Lord of Mysteries? Oh, this is sick. Wait. Oh, this is good. When was this? Oh. Is this a ship I see? Is that a ship I see? Okay, wait, we've seen these. These are old ones. Wait, these are really old ones. This one. Welcome to the Realm of Peak, the night. Wait, hold up. Whoa, wait, so this is Kohanim? What the? This is so cool. Dude, love, thank you so much. Wait, so this is Kohanim. Wow. She is beautiful. She is gorgeous. Yo, man, I'm gonna start streaming with elf ears. The OST is a really good LOTM artist that did the Lenevu's deaf art and a billion other. Oh, that was him? Oh, that was getting a phone call from the missus. How does she know we're ending stream? Dude, wait, what is this? Welcome to the Realm of Peak. The night of 27/28, 06/28 was definitely a crazy and memorable night, so why not steal the memories with a drawing? Totally didn't have the idea 2 weeks ago and then got hit with other projects. Yup. Anyways, hopefully this cures your self-esteem like you ask. Easy Geeky, hopefully this captured your fit cosplay well enough and everyone else enjoy the little star-facing spirit. Those are us. Oh, that's so cool. P.S. Did I add the Loen-styled somewhere in it because Wiz said he couldn't read Loen-styled? We're gonna learn to read it. Bro, love, what the fuck? Dude. That is so fucking sick. Wait, wrong thing. Where's the wrong one? Wait a sec. That is so fucking cool, dude. Holy shit. Dude. That is so badass. Dude. I'm genuinely speechless. This is sick as fucking. Look, this is all of you guys right here. Oh, shit. These are names in Loen-styled. I can't read this, bro. Who are these people? Which one is Love? Love has to be the big one. Is this Love? Dude, this is so cool. Dude. Thank you, dude. How are you such an amazing artist? Dude, that is so crazy, man. Thank you guys. Dude, I'll be honest, man. It don't matter if it's a stick figure drawing or whatever. Like, whatever you guys do that's fan art, I'm always appreciative, man. Like, it generally shows, like, that you care. And I'm not saying you don't care if you do fan art, but, like, dude, thank you, man. Like, that's just something else. And, like, you're taking time of your day to do this. Thank you guys so much. It spells out 11-hour crash out. No, they're not names. It spells out 11-hour crash out. 11-hour crash out. Okay, that's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, dude, we're the legendary lore. That is crazy, dude. Thank you guys, man. All right, man. We're gonna end stream there. I'm gonna upload this bad boy, and the plan is to hopefully come back and do more. I got a quick meeting, and then when we come back, hopefully we have like another 2 or 3 hours of free time before we hang out with the missus. What I do need to do, I do need to pack my bag for my trip. So I took out the good old travel backpack I took to Japan, because this backpack has been coming in handy. So I'm gonna let you guys go. Have a beautiful day. Praise the Fool. And we will see you guys next time. Hopefully later tonight, but tomorrow for sure. And then I will be out. I will be out of town. I'll be gone for like... I'll be gone Thursday night to Monday night. So once we're back Tuesday, you guys better get ready for me to start farming these videos. I'm gonna upload so many videos, you guys are gonna get tired of it. That is the goal. That is the plan. And the goal is to have an unofficial 24-hour stream. And pass whiz. I'm sorry, those are big words. I know I should have done that last time. But you know what? I feel like we did a pretty semi-long stream. I feel like we've done some pretty semi-long streams up until then. So we're gonna have an official, unofficial 24-hour stream sometime this month. All right, guys. You guys have a beautiful base day. Base, defeat your rival. We'll defeat him. We're gonna defeat him until we have artwork with us standing above him. No, I'm fucking kidding. No, I love it. I love it, man. All right, you guys have a beautiful day. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Peace, and have a beautiful day. Later, guys.